You sound you sound great. All right, good evening. It is 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time today, Monday, August 17th, 2026. And I'd like to call Hood River County's work session agenda to order. First on the agenda, we've got committee interviews and appointments. We'll start with the Fair Board applicants unless there's anything, Allison, that we need before we get started.
No, I think we can go ahead and start with our Fair Board applicant. I think we have one in the room, and I am not sure if we heard from the second one, Sophie.
We heard from two, Matthew Pilla and Linda Martin.
No, this is for the fair.
And
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll call Linda Massengill up to speak.
And here.
And make sure that that thing's flashing green.
It is.
Great.
Great. Hello, Linda. Thank you so much for applying.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, your address, and we got that through your application, but why are you interested in serving?
Well, my name is Linda Massengill, and I live at 2440 Old Dalles Drive up on the east side of Hood River. I've been an active volunteer in the community for a while, and I enjoy bringing the community together, and I volunteer at the Fish Food Bank. I just came from there. That's why I have the shirt on. Anyway,
Yeah.
and church involvement, White's Fire Department involvement. I just feel like a lot of the community events and everything that can kind of come together and support the community. The fair itself has always been a real big thing to me. When I was a child, I stayed out there at Hood River County Fair all day long, just hanging out and showing sheep and 4-H, FFA, whatever. And it's just nice to be able to be part of a group that come together and supports the community and bring new ideas maybe. Also, I been coordinating the fair parking for the last 5 years now. And so I'm kind of out on the grounds through the whole fair, and I see and hear a lot. So I feel like what I hear and what I can bring to the board would be very helpful in making good decisions and making the fair a better place.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Munzer, let's start with you. Do you have any questions for Linda?
I'm gonna ask you a couple questions I already know the answer to, but just because I deal with you on a regular basis at the fair. And another thing, your 2 weeks of the last part of July that you work so hard out there, you're still gonna be able to do that and stay devoted to it, I assume.
Yes.
And I can tell you that Linda is a big part of the fair already. She comes to the fair board meetings, which to me is a big bonus. So I don't have a lot of questions. I think they're a great candidate.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Any questions?
I took the air out of everyone's sails, so thank you for thank you for applying. I'm assuming that maybe you've talked to somebody who's been in the organization for a while and understand the requirements and such. So
Yes.
thank you for applying.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you also. And corn dogs or cotton candy?
Corn dogs.
Same.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for that one.
Great. Well, thank you, Linda. We will make our decision later in the agenda, so you're welcome to stay, or we will notify you later.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
It will be a
Yeah,
lengthy
thank you.
meeting, so you
Yeah.
may not.
Okay, I'll head on out. Thanks again. Thanks again.
Thank you.
We don't have the other app. Right.
Yeah.
No confirmation or just here.
Our other applicant, Enrique Esquivias, did he not show?
We have not had confirmation from him and
Okay.
seen him in the room.
All right. Well, then we can move on to the ambulance service area advisory committee applicant for the civilian position. We'll have Matthew Hilla. Please come up.
Hi there. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Please tell us about yourself and why you'd like to serve. And thank you for applying.
As a start, by the way, nice to meet everyone here. So long story short,
Just real quick,
yes.
Name and address for the record if you don't.
Oh, yes. So Matthew Hilla, 1055 Quail Court, Red River, Oregon.
Awesome.
Long story short, this wasn't on my radar at all. And then I got a text message from Dr. Chris Van Tilburg. He said, hey, there's something that I think you should apply to and put your name in. I think you'd be a really good fit with it. My experience with emergency services in Hood River County, went with volunteering as one of the EMRs that, he helped bring up the speed during COVID when it was needed, getting involved in search and rescue, responding on trail rescues, and then working as a volunteer for a long period of time with our sheriff's office, on the water and helping with the Marine program. And then recently I was hired on as a Marine Deputy Reserve this year for that. But my passion's always been kind of emergency services and response. I started off a career of lifeguarding. As a kid, I worked with Coast Guard Auxiliary with my uncle. And I've always been in a small rural community. Town I'm from in Wisconsin is 2,000 people. And the land mass of the county, Walworth County, is bigger than Hood River County. And the problems for ambulance response and first response was something I'm innately familiar with growing up, where we ended up training community members because we didn't have enough responses. So we built people as a result, right? We had to fill gaps in some way. I see kind of some similar issues within a complex county that's growing as fast as we are. I understand that there's quite availability to help and have a public perspective as somebody that lives, I don't live in the city, I live in outskirts of the county as well. And I'm curious about, what's going to go on and how I can help. As I advance my life and my professional career, I find myself with more and more free time to, put into my community, which is one of the reasons I came to Hood River in 2016. Is turning down my work life and getting into community life and doing more for where I live and following those passions. This seemed like a really good fit. It's something I'm interested in learning more about, and I'm hoping it's something that I can contribute to and answer your questions in a way that make you feel confident as well.
Great, thank you for that. Commissioners, any questions?
Just wondering, was it a culture shock to come to a metropolis like River County from the?
It's kind of funny. Like, it is a booming metropolis compared to East Troy, Wisconsin, where we have more cattle than people, right? It's a dairy farm area. When I first moved to the West Coast, it was Portland, which was, too big. My spouse is from Chicago, so that was too small for her. And then I convinced her that life is better in a community like this, where you actually know people and kids can walk to school. Sometimes take their horses to school, and you see as we quote unquote free range children, right? I love those aspects of community, and those things need to be protected. So for me, it feels right at home. It still does feel kind of big though. I mean, there's one-way streets. Where I come from, there wasn't one-way streets, there's dirt roads.
How many traffic signals do we have? 3? We counted once. So.
Yeah.
3,
Yeah, exactly.
4.
There was one when I was growing up, so it's.
There's that half. There's the half of one down by the port too, right?
Oh, I'll ask a question. Have you been told what the time commitment is, and do you have that time?
Yeah, so I have not been told the complete time commitment as expected. I understand the monthly meetings, of course, the one day a month that you have. I understand there's actually research and development opportunities outside of that, where if there's actually aspects that you volunteer for to find out more information or provide that I will be called on as well. But it has not been specified as the exact number of hours.
So Chris basically volunteered you for this, and you fill in on that part of it.
Yeah. Chris knows my schedule is quite flexible. I mean, so
okay.
Without going into too much detail, obviously I'm a man of few words. My day job starts at 4 a.m. and it ends at 11 a.m. After that, the time is up for me to do what I wish, which is kind of nice. So it gives me a lot of time to add to my community.
Great. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you so much, Matthew. This is a really important committee, and we will decide later in our agenda. So if you want to stick around, it is a long meeting. If not, we'll notify you later.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're going to work at 4, you may not want to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We'll be done by 4.
Yeah. I hope.
Okay. All right, next on our agenda, we have the Neil Creek Road gate closure update.
Right. Happy to have Doug back. At our last meeting, there were questions about the Neil Creek Road gate closure. And so Doug and our team have been working on a presentation and some visuals to show you the extent of what this issue is and get your input.
Thank you, commissioners, and for taking the time to talk about this a bit more, get to learn a little bit about it. I think Sophie's got a PowerPoint. She's trying to get up on the screen, so I'm gonna wait a moment. There we go.
That one right there.
That one's it. That's not from Neil Creek, but it's in the county. So. Here we go. But yeah, I'd like to talk to you about the Neil Creek Canyon Gate and vehicle access closure that we instituted this year. It's actually Hood River County Forest Road number 7500. It's kind of part of it goes through Neil Creek Canyon. And I'll just talk a little bit about that and go ahead into the next slide. On July 20th, 2026, the Oregon Department of Forestry increased prevention measures to IFPL 3 due to extreme fire danger and fire activity. In a predetermined response to IFPL 3 for 2026, the County Forestry Department closed the Neil Creek Canyon road gates that run from the end of the pavement up through the East Fork of Neil Creek Canyon. So you might ask, well, what's IFPL 3? What is that? IFPL stands for Industrial Fire Precaution Level, and there's 4 levels ranging from 1 to 4 as the fire risk increases. And the system is set up by ODF to regulate and prevent fires from industrial and equipment-related activities in forested protected lands. The IFPL levels can also be a beneficial measure for recreational type closures. And so I've referenced the IFPL levels to ramp up recreational fire prevention measures on the county forest as things get drier. The extreme fire risk and actual fire activity is a factor too in all of this. To remember that as we get into these IFPL 3, resources may be more limited to stop a new fire start. And as we can see from the grasshopper fire, things can blow up quickly. Local fire resources at that point have plenty to do without additional human-caused fire starts. Now, talking a little bit about our county gate policy, county forest gate closures may be year-round, seasonal, or for public safety like fire. The forestry department currently maintains over 140 gates. And as new logging roads are built for timber harvesting, some were selected for gates. Part of this is due to the high levels of recreational use that we see now versus 30 to 40 years ago. There's certainly always been recreation, but there's more recreational activity now. Gates can help curtail dumping, abandoned vehicles, minimize road maintenance needs, and that's a costly one, and also reduce fire risks. For all county forest roads, except for the seasonal gate closures on Gilhooly Road, Post Canyon Road, and Rorden Hill Forest Roads, where the Forestry Department obtains Board of Commissioner approval annually. For most county forest roads, the Forestry Director has discretion over which county roads to close and by what means. In some cases, we don't just use gates. In the past, we used to tank trap roads quite a bit. And in the more extreme cases, sometimes we'll even obliterate roads, but that's pretty uncommon.
So you would seasonally tank trap the roads?
Tank trapping would be more of a permanent fixture. A little more background on Neil Creek Canyon. The County Forestry Department has experienced at least 2 fires in the last 10 years. Both started on county forest property along Neil Creek Canyon Road in an old rock pit area that is commonly used for target shooting. And you can move to slide 3. I think you're probably there already. Yeah. And the road is in an old rock pit area that's commonly used for target shooting. And since the first fire in 2016, I have received calls from landowners in the area to close the area to access during fire season. I also felt a seasonal gate closure could reduce fire starts there. I eventually connected with neighboring industrial forest landowners to assist with a gate on the top just above the canyon, since access would need to be restricted from multiple ownerships to be an effective prevention measure. I'd also add that there is more than one location used for shooting in the canyon, so focusing on only one pit would only transfer the problem further up the canyon. Now, I installed the county gate at the bottom of the forest road in 2024, and the other gate to the south on top was installed by a cooperating party in the spring of 2026. Both gates were needed to effectively close the road. And after the fire start last year, more landowners reached out to have access restricted during fire season, and more were concerned about fire starts there.
Could you be a little more clear when you're talking about the landowners? Are you talking about the forest lot owners, or are you talking about homeowners down the
primarily homeowners in the area near this zone? And there's also some concerns expressed regarding increased recreational traffic on Neil Creek Forest Road as well. And I will say at the June Recreation Trail meeting, the Forestry Department received input on the Neil Creek gate closure and gate closures generally on the forest, with the preference of leaving gates open. So we're getting input on both sides of the issue. You can go ahead to slide 4. Thanks. So let's look at where this seasonal closure is on the ground. We got some aerial imagery. Up near the top center, there's Highway 35 is that red road there. And Neil Creek Road comes pretty much straight south from that near the top of the page and is highlighted with a little yellow outline there. And it works its way down, maybe a couple miles down to where the road hits the forest boundary, which is shaded in green, kind of a transparent green there. And just off the end, the pavement ends there, and maybe a couple hundred feet up the county forest road, which is graveled at that point, we placed the first gate. And so that's what you see there in red with a G on it. And then you travel south, it looks to be about maybe 1/2 to 3/4 of a mile there, up the road past the gate, and you get to the rock pit, and there's a little bit of a target there. Right close to the property line, and that is where the shooting range that is really popular, seems to get the most use, I would guess, is used right there. And then further south, the road wiggles around as it goes to the south and a little bit west up the hill, and you get to another red gate there. It's also on the boundary of Hood River County Forest, as well as the state of Oregon property, DSL property there. And that's where the other gate was placed this late winter, early spring. So that gives you a little bit of a reference of the section of road between those 2 red gates there on the map, the section that's actually closed. But that road winds up through a pretty steep canyon, and then works its way up through the switchbacks there to get up on top and break out up on the ridge on top. So with that, I will move on to the next slide. Here's a picture of the lower gate. Again, you're about maybe 200 feet up past the end of the pavement there. And this was first time it was closed was this year in July 20th. So it was a new closure. And the idea here is that these gates will be closed for about 2 to 2.5 months each year during IFPL level 3, primarily. And then once we get into September, expected usually in September, IFPL 3 comes off, and I would open these gates at that point. So fire level typically diminishes once they drop it down out of an IFPL 3, possibly to a 1. But in that time frame, we'd try to get these open as soon as that level is improved in the fall. And then you can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So here's a picture of the old rock pit, which is used for target practice. This is one of the primary targets, a little bit more of the shorter range targets, but this is the one that you typically might see first when you come in. And I'll point out that there's some, the main target is down lower there, just in front of it here, maybe 25 yards out there. But trying to get this clip off here. There's actually some targets up the hill here, and there's some even up in there. There's one over there. So people will get to shooting further on up the hill and further into that dry vegetation. So it gives you a little bit of an idea of the lay of the land. Down in the foreground, you see a lot of shell casings. This is a very popular site. It's pretty close to the lower valley floor, and a lot of people know about it. And it's not that far up on the county forest. So it's pretty easy to get to, but only certain people go up that road too. So it's also a little bit secluded in a way. And it is just a popular spot for shooting, target practice. We'll go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Now this we actually have a little bit of a video, and I'm going to point out there's a campfire ring right there in the dry vegetation, right there on the ground. Again, you can kind of see this kind of the main short range site right there that people probably use for pistols and that kind of thing more. There's a big leaf maple there on the left. We just went by. That's the property line, kind of goes in the foreground between this. And then the far bank over there also typically has some targets set up, and people will shoot into that bank over in there. And it's a longer range shot for people with rifles and that kind of thing. You see that a fair amount there. I can't say it's the best setup for that target area, but as long as people do it correctly, it works. But that gives you a little bit of an idea of that shooting zone area. And again, you've got dry vegetation. The hillside slopes up pretty quickly from the bottom of the canyon here. And, in terms of like logging systems, it gets into cable yarding type ground rather quickly. So when we get so back on that, if you go back to the last slide, Sophie. So, both of the fires started right here at the bottom of the slope, right at the edge of that bank there, maybe just up on it a little bit. One of them started a little further up there, but it was not far off the bank, and it immediately burned across and up the hill. So it was pretty quick. And I would say both of those fires started at a time when it was not really strong winds. It wasn't the worst conditions by any means. And I feel like ODF was pretty fortunate to have retardant available and be able to catch those fires further up. I was there both times shortly after they were called in. And the first time it was 15 acres. The second time it was 4 acres. But again, I would say that we were a little bit fortunate that the conditions were not worse. Some of the homeowners that I get input from are in the bottom of the valley canyon area there, just before you get to the gate. And along Neil Creek Road there, but some of them are up on the hill, even in the direction this is kind of pointing up to the left there and up on top. That leads up to Fir Mountain Road, basically at the top of the ridge, about a half mile to a mile away, depending on how you do that. And so some of those landowners, definitely homeowners, have certainly expressed concern about some of the shooting that goes on here in the summertime. So just wanted to point out the perspective here of what we're looking at, not to mention that there's this county forest land too. And so I'm really looking out for at a risk factor here. We've had multiple fires start from the same location, same practice. And how can we best mitigate that? And then I'll let Sophie forward on to the next couple slides. We'll go on to the next one. And here's the upper gate. The road has come out here and breaking up on top of the ridge. You're not in the canyon anymore. You're more on top of the ridge. But a similar style gate, heavy gate there, and it's pretty typical of the type of gate that we might use to control vehicle access there. So this area, some people might refer this as Pine Mountain up on the ridge top there, and the state tract there. A lot of times we'll call that the Pine Mountain tract there of the state DSL property. But this gate right here is on county forest land where the gate's at. So do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So first of all, so you used your authority as the forester to make a decision, and you described balancing interests. Can you talk a little bit more about whether there's any process or what sort of inputs other than people offering information to you, whether you sought information from outside or how you made that call?
Yeah, I really, in a lot of cases, most of the gates that we install, we don't have much direct input on, if any. And I use a lot of the past rationale, I guess, and practice in terms of side roads and that kind of thing. I will say this is more of a primary road. I would consider Neo Creek Canyon more of a primary, although it's not heavily used, at the least secondary, but really for the area, you would have to call it more of a primary road. More like what you would reference Post Canyon, Rorden Hill, or Gilhooly Road of going over Middle Mountain, because there's a lot of other roads that come off of this section of road there as well. And most of those are gated now. So yeah, I don't normally, do a public survey. We may or may not talk to the advisory committees about it. They're generally aware that we do this. I know on the Forest Advisory Committee, I generally have support for this kind of practice. And we may or may not say too much on the Forest Recreation Committee as well. But we did get some input during one of the last Recreation Trail Committee meetings.
So the mail that Dwayne sent us described that there are a set of neighbors who effectively live at the end of a dead-end road when this is closed, and that an escape route for them in a fire is closed off to them. Is there any, that sounds like it's correct. It sounds like it's true. Has any consideration been given of giving them access to that gate so that they can get through?
That's a potential scenario if we felt that it was prudent to do that. It would be unusual. I can't think of another case where we've done something like that specific to a neighboring landowner like that, but there's potential that something like that could be done.
Has the county considered developing a more formal shooting area so that we have several informal areas which tend to be poorly designed or moderately poorly designed, and has any thought been given to that?
Yes, generally, certainly there's ideas that have come up over the years, but they also take money and someone to sponsor them, and we've not had anyone come forward with kind of willing to do all of that, and it takes time to try to figure it out. Not to mention there could be liability issues. And so we have not pursued that, and there hasn't been a lot of, I guess, pressure or support to really champion that. But the costs, there would be some costs with it as well.
But some of there are, this shooting area, the one on Old Dallas Road, are as areas that have, I think that one may have been successfully closed off now, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
those are known as areas that have started fires and are used by people who aren't necessarily aware or notified of what the risks and dangers are. So it seems like it's more than just, I know multiple places around the valley where people are shooting and they all have various amounts of risk associated with them.
Right. And, the sheriff department members, individuals have occasionally mentioned it in the distant past too, about potential for looking at a certain type of ranges. They currently have one range up on, that's not open to the public, but it's actually on the West Fork of Neo Creek Canyon that they utilize for training. So that's one that we do have there. But in terms of something that's open to the public, that would take a little more thought. potentially a little bit of money to support that and someone to champion taking care of it as well, because there tends to be a lot of garbage that ends up there and can, takes more time to manage. But I would be mostly concerned about liabilities. And so that would be one of the first things that I would want to be able to confirm would be managed correctly.
But aren't these the same sorts of issues and questions that arose when with recreational use of the forest, with hiking, biking, all those various uses, and people doing things informally and without coordination, and the county stepped in and started coordinating things and allowed
that
for
can
safer
help.
recreational use.
That can help for sure.
Yep.
That certainly can help in terms of the risks, but also, and again, you have to consider, what's causing some of these fires in this case. I know for a fact last year, I talked to the person that started this fire, the last fire, and they were using an incendiary device, which was already banned. So even though you have something like that out there, there's no guarantee that they're going to do it correctly or, follow the regulations that are in place.
So
that's unfortunate.
So the question that was asked related to this is why aren't we closing gates in the other forests, for example, Post Canyon? I saw last night that the Yakima Nation is closing all the gates in the national forest, their half of the national forest, so basically their half of Mount Adams. And because of the high risk of fire and just the fact that they don't want people overnight in those areas, as they view that as a higher potential for fire starts. What I understand is when the Austin fire started, which you can see on the map, it's right next to a dispersed campsite. When that started, that required taking people off the Grasshopper fire. And there's the other fire next to that. I forget the name of that one that is right next to a habitual shooting area. So it seems like the recreational uses at this time are not a good idea. Have we considered, or have you considered additional recreational closures?
I'm always open to it. I don't feel at this time additional closures are necessary, but we can always consider them at this time. That's
I guess
a daily, a weekly thing that you think through, and as you start getting more fire starts and potentials.
How much worse does it have to be? I mean, aren't we in a situation where
you never know?
People, the joke people are making is you fart in the woods, it starts a fire right now. Wouldn't that suggest that closing the gates to keep vehicles out and have people not overnight camping in Post Canyon, where most of our merchantable timber is, would be a prudent move to protect that asset?
It's an option. It's an option. There's always downsides. You're going to get feedback either way. Again, you'll have people that support, you'll have people that won't support.
You mean the downside being that people might be inconvenienced by not being able to camp in the woods for free, instead of having to come into town and spend money?
Certainly if they don't have access.
So would those other areas be at the same heightened level that you said, I have IFPL3?
They're all at IFPL3 currently.
So I guess I would piggyback on that question is, so that wouldn't be the only factor for you to make said decision. So, I mean, what is the typical point for deciding to for gate closures? Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say I'm concerned as well, that if we have more zones that are in that same classification, what are the other criteria that are used to close gates?
When we start having more intensity fires, the fire level, while it is extreme and we are in a level 3, they're not particularly way off the charts at the far end, 90th percentile or that, at least from what I've seen so far. And I've seen this over the years, so I do track this stuff. So we might hit it temporarily at some point as we go over the next month. So I guess that is why I would say that level of caution hasn't quite been reached, but everybody's feel for that is going to be different.
Yeah, but what we need consistency as far as I'm concerned with the gate closures. If that's where we're at in the entire county right now.
Right.
We have people going over to Gilhooly. We have more usage on the west side than we do anywhere. I mean, Neil Creek is a minor usage compared to that. And we still have a ton of motorcycles going around that gate. So.
There's a few.
There's
We were
a
up
lot.
there and
I
looked
was
at
there
it.
today.
Okay.
So, yes.
It's a valid concern. You could say that every year, then we go to level 3, we should close the gates. That'd probably be, you could
I
make
guess-
that call.
The way that I see this one is, we have neighbors of ours who have their towns threatened. I mean, Dufur, Pine Hollow, who are threatened now, and the resources that are protecting them would have to be shifted to this area if a fire starts in Post Canyon or on Neil Creek. So that would say to me that we should do everything we can to make sure neighbors have the resources they need to fight the fires that already started instead of taking the risk of starting new ones. And if the cost is low to closing the vehicle access, I'm not saying you have to tell people that the forest is closed. I'm saying to tell people that there's no overnight camping, no dispersed camping, allow camping at campsites, but no dispersed camping and no vehicles past the gates. Do we have if you pull the switch on that, how quickly could that happen?
For the gates and the roads that we have gates on, because not all of our
I
roads
know
have
they're not
gates.
located, yeah.
But for the ones we would need to get, I'd need to work through the commissioners actually, and because some of those main roads on the west side, for example, and certainly Gilhooly, it's the same trigger. I would need to ask the commissioners to for permission to close those gates, basically. And so I need to get approval from the commissioners to do that. The rest of the gates, if there's any that are open, many of them are already closed. But there's a few, just past the Bensill staging area is a good example. There's a couple gates there that we could close that are typically open this time of the year. And there's a few others, I'm sure. Within a few days, we could get that implemented, I think, and then consider relative to that. I think we would probably need to consider, what other primary roads or secondary roads should be closed at that point, or additional gates that could be used for a seasonal closure. I will say that when we do Whiskey Creek Fire is a good example. We had more areas closed, and we have to drag out barricades and all that kind of stuff, and get those all set up along with signage. It's not all of our roads are set up to just close the forest, basically, yet. It is kind of piecemeal. There's a lot more gates than there used to be, but not anywhere. It's not complete, I guess you could say. And I would say that, the support has not always been there necessarily to close them all the time. So, but things change. And I think that if that's the desire of the board, then we can certainly close those gates.
I don't think you're gonna get 100% support one direction or the other for any issue we talk about.
Well, I think we would have to, I think, so first of all, I'm gonna ask that we schedule a meeting to talk about this specifically, because people weren't noticed that this is the public discussion of this subject. So I'm not suggesting any action coming out of this meeting, but I would like to suggest a special meeting, I guess what we call non-emergency meeting, special meeting, to have that discussion. And then I would like it to be considered that we should actually have a plan. I suspect that you do have more of a plan than you're describing of what action you would take if you get a phone call from the governor saying do something. I suspect that you know what you would be doing. So,
well, what we've done in the past, we've closed the gates we have, and then we have some type 3 barricades. We didn't have as many in the past, but we do now. Take the type 3 barricades that we have on the main road access points onto the county forest, and we would place those there. And where we need additional signage, we would use a little sandwich board barricades and use those to fill in the rest. But frankly, it would take I think to really do it right, it would take some more resources or actually putting in some gates at those locations to actually have the infrastructure to pull it off.
but also every effort that you make makes it marginally safer, right? If you
I think
close off the
generally-
gates and put up signs and let it be
Yep.
known that there's no dispersed camping in the woods now because of extreme fire danger, some reasonable percentage of people will be paying attention to that, and people may be finding ways around, and Chad's friends may be going around on their motorcycles and finding ways up into the woods there, but just give me a hard time. But still, I have to believe that would mean that there's less dispersed camping happening up there, which is what I understand to be the one of the greater risks. And I guess the separate question is about allowing the neighbors access to the gates so that they have an emergency escape. I would think that would be a pretty high priority. I sure wouldn't want to be living at the end of a road with one point of connection where I thought there were two when I moved in there. Some people voluntarily do that. There's just people who moved up on Old Al's Road and have chosen to locate themselves at the end of a dead end. That's on them. But these are folks who thought that they had a way in and out in two directions.
It would be impossible to predict exactly what angle or where a fire starts from there in the canyon. I would have to say it's more likely as you go up the canyon than coming back down. And your best, quickest access is going to be out to Highway 35. But that said, you cannot say with absolute 100% that
Someone plowing someone cutting their hay hits a rock, starts a fire down below. It's gonna be the opposite. Right?
There is an example of that. There was a fire lit on Neil Creek that would have absolutely done what you're talking about. It would have made it to where there was no accident.
What was the
That happened
ignition?
last Saturday.
Okay.
A homeowner had rented out their house and somebody thought it'd be a good idea to have a campfire by the creek, and the fire department was called.
Oh, that's right.
That would have stranded.
Yeah.
A lot of those people had that blown up, so there is that example. And then getting back to Neil Creek, if the shooting range is the problem, which we know that has a lot to do with your decision. I think that needs to be a pretty high priority if we at least go rip it out and get some signs up there saying, at least. If that's gonna be the main reason that we're shutting that down earlier than all these other places, then I think we could mitigate that without a huge amount of cost. At least try, and then maybe that wouldn't be the first road that we had to shut down because of that.
Yeah, I would say it's a little drier on that side. And again, as I showed, there's a lot of grass there and it's steep slopes. So to me, that's a little riskier there. By a bit, by weeks anyways. But eventually you get to this point in the year, everything's pretty dry. So, we're splitting hairs there.
So
So
is the Old Owls or Firm Out and those
You can find-
I mean,
that's right.
and we have no way of shutting those roads down. I mean, they're open.
Right.
So.
And then unfortunately, again, a lot of the real problem stuff we get, it's either accidental something or people just are not following the rules that we have. So however, again, it was really clear why we're proposing to close the gate there as we are, because it really felt like that was the best way, putting signs at that site. And people go up the road a little further and there's another spot, go up the road a little further, there's another spot, or somewhere else on the county forest is not as clear and it's not necessarily any better. So the gates are probably the most complete way to do it, but I'm open to whatever input folks think.
Well, thank you, Doug. And I agree with the comments that the commissioners have made. Allison, if we could get a special meeting scheduled to figure out how we can have some consistency when closing our gates when we're in such a dangerous time. I would love to do whatever we can to preserve our resources and make sure that we have as much support for our neighbors if they need fire department services.
Chair Moretti?
Yes.
So I'd like to just to make it a little more clear what we're requesting. I would like to request that we have a special meeting within the next week to discuss the options for a closure of our forest lands to overnight dispersed camping and to vehicular access. So is that a specific enough? Is that a reasonable way to describe it?
Sounds good to me.
And then the separate thing is simply asking our forester to see if he can accommodate the neighbor's needs for, I understand it's an unusual situation, but unusual situations need solutions too, to see if there's a solution to allow the neighbors access through the gates so that they can escape if they have to.
And are these the only neighbors that will have, uh,
Oh, there are a bunch of houses.
There's quite a few houses. I've spoken to some of them because they've called me.
mhm.
They're not concerned, but
Okay.
they prefer to have a gate closed. But
Doug.
it's not
excuse me,
impossible.
Has the process in the past been to utilize having the fire district have keys so that they were managing the public access and so,
Usually the fire districts aren't managing the access,
Well,
but
I
they may
mean,
have
if
they may
there's
have
an
keys. Yeah, so they would, and Greg's got keys now. It'd just been a long time since he had connected, and just didn't have current keys, but, that's something periodically that, we just reach out and make sure they have what they need. But I think that would be difficult to depend on them to open any given gate.
They could be
They're
stuck
gonna
on the
be
wrong
trying to
side.
get to a fire and they may not be going right through that gate, so I would think. I mean, it's great that they have a key and that's fine. Whether that's law enforcement. Let's continue to think on that and see if there's a way we can do that makes sense
Well, I
for that
believe there's
particular
a police
gate.
officer that lives on. pretty
That's
close
true,
to
but what
that.
if they're not there when it happens, and so I think it does.
Or like,
be
yeah,
different.
a key code box on the gate. Certain folks have the code to open up the box at the gate.
That's not the technology that we got there now. We've got,
Oh, I mean, like, when you're gonna check out a house and you put in the code to
Oh.
open up the key and the keys inside.
oh, got it. Okay. The real box.
Yeah, the realtor box.
It does feedback.
Yeah, I mean, just to make sure. And I was wondering in other areas in the county, when you're closing gates, are there any other homes that are at dead end areas that
I'm sure we can
might-
come up with some. I'm not thinking of any exactly like that one.
Okay.
There's a few, we have a lot of neighbors, right? 34,000 acres. You got a lot of neighbors out there.
Mhm.
This is the first time it's come up, so.
This is a pretty unique situation, though.
It is.
It hasn't had a gate in, obviously, history.
Right.
And for the neighbors who moved there, all of a sudden there's a gate. After they've lived there for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Some may like that, some may not.
yeah, we have a new situation. We've had a reasonable
Yeah.
request, and it's something we should ask our forester to take a look at.
So I'm sure there's something we can do there, but we just kind of need to think through that a little bit.
Anything else
Should-
on this topic?
Or do we, or can
I
we just
would-
request to let you work on that, let you and Sophie work on that?
I think we need to understand what it would take to put that together and the resources that it would take to put that together. I worry about our ability to do that and be back to you in a week. But is the concern the fire
It's a
danger?
exigent circumstance. I don't want to wait.
Okay, and so we can schedule a meeting, the chair can schedule a meeting with 24 hours notice, so we can put that together. I just want to make sure staff has the ability to frame out a plan.
We may not have a perfect plan, but we can have a plan we can use for now and then work on a perfect plan this winter. Right?
Okay.
Not that it matters, but I will be out of town anyway, so. Try to log on remote, depending on what time it is, but I'll be.
Yeah, I guess I'm hoping that we can do something that doesn't require Doug to do a whole bunch of homework and do something that would
Mhm.
able to be done before Friday.
Well, we've had emergencies, so you have some sort of idea of how you handle that, so.
Right.
Mhm.
But it just depends on how complex you want to try to think every scenario through or not, or whether we're just talking about one gate. Or, or if we're looking at closing more across the county forest, that will take a little more time to sort through and really get your input on it. I mean, we could make a decision to just close a certain amount relatively easily, but. It could take.
And- Yeah. And the announcements of the no dispersed camping I mean, the word of mouth will spread.
Yeah, and we might have to look at, the ordinance behind that to back it up as well.
Mm.
That would take.
Mhm.
So.
So when, commissioners, just to make sure I'm clear, was the intention to have a meeting within this week or at the beginning of next week?
That's sooner the better, probably.
Yeah, I would personally, I'm worried that Doug is overthinking this. And so I don't have a problem with us saying, have a meeting before Friday and, make it clear to Doug that we're not expecting him to have a polished, I don't want a presentation. I don't want anything polished. I want, we've got an emergency situation, exigent circumstances, what are some simple measures we can take to reduce the risk, reduce the threat to our, one of our major county resources.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's the last thing we had on our work session agenda. It's 7:51. Do we want a 9-minute break before our business meeting?
People are just walking into the room, so it seems like a good idea to let people all get seated and ready for the next.
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah, sounds great. We will get started at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. It's 6 o'clock. Are we ready to start? Okay. All right, 6 o'clock Monday, August 17th, 2026. I call the Hood River County business meeting agenda to order. And we'll start off with any additions or deletions to our agenda. We've got
We're ready to have the supplemental agenda for this evening. That we would need to add item P, Q, R, and S to the consent agenda. And items B and C to the new business agenda.
Yes, I saw those. Thank you. Is there a motion to add those?
Yeah,
So moved.
second. I just have a question. I'm sorry, what will we add to the supplemental agenda? I thought there was just one item on the supplemental agenda.
There were 6 items brought into the supplemental agenda.
Must not have seen the most recent one. So,
So,
you'll do this here.
yes, 2 timber sales, 2 grant opportunities, the drought emergency declaration, and the letter for the Parks and Recreation.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so moved by Commissioner Weathers, seconded by Commissioner Babbitts. Any opposed? Okay, chair votes aye, motion passes. Got our agenda. Next, any conflict or potential conflict of interest?
Do we need to do a roll call vote? We do need.
We need a roll call vote?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Commissioner Munzer.
Yes.
Or Commissioner Babbitts.
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Chair votes aye.
And
Motion.
if we could pause the meeting quickly, it sounds like we are getting feedback on the recording. So if you
Sure.
for a minute to shut down and restart.
And just if anyone hasn't figured it out, Chair Moretti is in Peru now, running the meeting from Peru. So amazingly, we have technology that lets us do that.
Yes.
We hope lets us do that.
It's capable so far.
So far, so good.
Yes, Chair Ewer is absent and got the 4 of us for tonight.
Okay. 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 Sophia is telling us to move forward.
Okay. All right, so we are on agenda item number 3, conflict or potential conflicts of interest.
Chair Moretti, I just want to announce that I plan to recuse myself when the public hearing opens, as I do have a conflict of interest in the upcoming public hearing.
Okay.
And I will allow
Would you?
that time.
Okay, thank you. You will elaborate at that time. Okay. Next, then we will move on to public hearings. And we have staff getting ready. Okay, well, this agenda item number 4 is a time set for hearing in the matter of an appeal filed by Grant Goldman of the County Planning Commission's final order for appeal number 26-0035, which reversed the planning director's decision and denied industrial land use permit number 25-0194. I'll open the hearing at this time. Because this hearing is being recorded, anyone who will be speaking should come to the front table, state your name and address, and speak clearly into the microphone. Qualified parties have the right to speak, provided that you do not have the right to be disorderly, abusive, or disrupt the hearing. You should not present irrelevant or immaterial testimony. The applicant, appellant, and/or their representative and those opposed to the application and/or their representatives will be given up to 10 minutes to present unless otherwise requested and allowed by the chair. The applicant, appellant will also be given up to 5 minutes if requested for rebuttal. At this point, I will ask the board members whether any of you need to disclose any personal bias, ex parte communications, or conflict of interest. Commissioner Weathers?
Just conflict of interest. I am a representative for an adjacent property owner. Had a meeting, I think it's been over a year ago, regarding an encumbrance of a fence over a property line, resulting in some, albeit small, economic cost to the organization which I represent, and conferring with Land Use Council. They have confirmed that that would be a conflict of interest, and for that reason, I will recuse myself from today's hearing.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
While you're there, could you also speak to whether or not you have any biases or any ex parte contact?
Thank you. No ex parte contact and no biases.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge the qualifications of any member of the board?
Should we do verbal disclosure? Should we state first? Chair,
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Babbitts, and then Commissioner Munzer.
And I have no conflicts of interest. I have no biases. There, on multiple occasions, people have started to try to talk to me about this issue, which I suspect is going to be the case for all of us. And I have promised them that anything that they had submitted that was in the record, I would read as I went through the record, which I know our packet is 1,065 pages. This week, I have reviewed the record, but I have not engaged in any of those discussions beyond saying I can't engage in those discussions.
Yeah, I have no ex parte conversations and no conflicts of interest either.
Thank you. Same for me. No personal bias, ex parte communications, or conflict of interest. Again, many people have approached trying to bring up the subject, and I've mentioned I can't speak about it, and that's been successful. I'll come back to the audience. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge the qualifications of any member of the board, please speak now. Okay. Seeing and hearing none. I'll move on. Pursuant to ORS 197.797, the following points are required to be read into the record. The criteria that apply to our decision are listed in both the staff report and the notice letter and may be further expanded or clarified during the hearing. Because our decision must be based on the approval criteria, any testimony must be directed towards the identified criteria or other criteria in the county's comprehensive plan or land use regulations that you believe apply to this decision. Please note, because tonight's hearing is based on the evidence that was presented to the Planning Commission that is already in the record, the 1,065 pages, the board will not accept any new evidence at this hearing. For that reason, your testimony must address only the approval criteria and evidence that is already in the record. 3, failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford the board and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals or Circuit Court based on that issue. 4, pursuant to provisions in section 60.06 of the Hood River County zoning ordinance, failure of a property owner to receive notice does not invalidate these proceedings because a good faith effort was made to notify everyone who is entitled to notice based on records in the Department of Records and Assessments, which were used. The order of the hearing is as follows. First, we will have the staff report. Then we will hear from the applicant or the appellant. 3, we will hear from those opposed to the application. Both the applicant and the appellant will have 10 minutes each. Then any interested public agencies, and that would be ODOT, if ODOT is present. Next, the applicant or the appellant will have an opportunity for rebuttal, and that will be for 5 minutes. And finally, questions by the decision makers. At that point, the hearing will be closed and no further testimony or argument is allowed. The board will then deliberate and either make a decision or continue the hearing to a date certain and finalize a decision at that time. Are there any questions concerning the procedure or rules that I have covered?
Chair, this might be a good time to clarify that any action of this body requires 3 votes in the affirmative. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. What I noticed when reviewing all this material is that there are multiple versions of a lot of documents. So I'm going from the versions that were in the public, on the public website, the set of, I don't know, 12 or so links. And I'm wondering if we're all in agreement that that's the record that we're working from, as opposed to various copies that came in emails and various other ways.
I'm using the links that were provided for the public record.
Okay, good. And I also understand there was a records challenge already. Do we deal with that before we get into taking additional, before we get into hearing the arguments?
I'll defer to, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and defer to Emily, who's our land use counsel for this.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. What is the nature of the challenge?
I'm sorry, I was informed that you had received a challenge to the letter that was submitted, that was forwarded to us, that came from Thrive.
Yes, I apologize. I understand what you're saying now. So I believe that the applicant / appellant will address that in their testimony. So that will be forthcoming.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Babbitts. Yes, this will require 3 votes. Okay. Now then we will move to staff report. Eric Walker.
Thank you, Chair Moretti and Commissioners. Before we dive into the staff report, I think it's appropriate to make a few additional comments concerning tonight's hearing that will hopefully be helpful to both the board and members of our audience. As most of us are aware, the land use review process is complex and very prescriptive. It's important to emphasize again that the board is bound by the information provided as part of the Planning Commission record, and no outside evidence will be accepted or considered in making the decision. Since the record is the only thing that is being argued tonight, and since it contains a transcript of the Planning Commission hearing and prior written comments received, public testimony is being restricted tonight to just the applicant and the primary opponent, which in this case is Thrive Hood River, who originally appealed the director's decision. No opportunity for individual testimony will be provided. Since the burden of proof falls on the applicant, a final rebuttal period will also be given. It's also important to emphasize that the board is bound by the applicable criteria that are found in the zoning ordinance. The board is not allowed to make a decision based on any outside factors or personal experiences. The board does not have the right to insert its own judgment in place of expert testimony, but does have the right to evaluate if the testimony received adequately addressed the criteria. The applicant has a right to an unbiased decision. The board is also not allowed to omit, add, or change any of the approval criteria. In the end, the only question that the board is allowed to answer tonight is, based on the evidence in the record before you, did the applicant meet its burden of proof in demonstrating the applicable criteria were met or not? And quite frankly, regardless of the outcome of tonight's hearing, it is very likely that this case will be appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals, and therefore it's necessary that the rules be strictly followed and that the final decision be clearly based on the available evidence and applicable criteria only, to avoid it being returned on remand. And so with that, unless there's any other questions, I'll turn things over to Keith.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This is a map of the area. It's zoned industrial M1. As noted, we're here tonight to consider an appeal filed by Grant Goldman of the County Planning Commission's final order for appeal, which reversed the planning director's decision and denied industrial land use permit number 25-0194. In order to provide a level of context for tonight's hearing and before we review the one appeal item before the board, this is a wide-angle view of the Lower Mill Industrial Park. For scale, this 2024 aerial view shows Cardinal Glass. It's a building which was originally approved in 2003, followed by subsequent additions, which bring it up to its current size of about 12.5 acres, or 550,000 square feet, and about 340 employees. As a side note, in 2021, they were approved for a 144,000 square foot addition, which is about 3 times the size of the entire proposed warehouse distribution facility. The proposed 48,000 square foot building is expected to employ about 110 people. So I'd like to go over just a brief timeline of events. In August 29th, 2025, NV5 Engineering submitted a scoping memo outlining the scope of work for the traffic impact study. In September, ODOT engineers and the County Public Works Department approved the scope of work. In October, the notice of the land use permit, industrial land use permit, went out. November 12th, John Mills of Thrive Hood River provided comments in opposition to the application, primarily citing deficiencies in the traffic impact study and safety issues related to the development. In November, ODOT commented officially that ODOT received a copy of the submitted traffic impact study and after review has determined no issues of concern. In January 2026, after receiving comments about perceived negative traffic impacts and safety issues, staff formally contacted ODOT and the County Public Works a second time to confirm that neither agency had concerns. In January of that same year, staff met with ODOT Engineering to discuss the traffic impact study and ensure that there were no issues with the project. Some minor recommended changes were made to the traffic impact study and it was resubmitted. January 29th of 2026, ODOT commented, "Thanks for sending the updated traffic impact study reflecting the mobility targets and volume to capacity ratio. As indicated in the original letter, ODOT has no issue with the land use application moving forward. Please let me know if you need an updated letter reflecting that ODOT has no concern." January 29th, ODOT submits a formal comment letter that states ODOT has no issue with the land use application moving forward. In February, industrial land use permit is approved. March 10th, we receive an appeal by the planning department, received an appeal of the planning department from Chris Roebuck, Thrive Hood River, citing that, quote, "The application did not contain enough information to establish that the use authorized in this M1 zone would be limited to rural uses, and the decision does not make the required Goal 14 findings." March 12th, notice of the appeal hearing was sent out. March 17th, planning staff, including Eric Walker, the planning director, met with Thrive to discuss the Oregon administrative rules, industrial uses, and the applicability of the Goal 14 standards. March 31st, Chris Roebuck, Thrive, stated in an email, "Thank you for the OAR reference you provided. We agree that the Goal 14 criteria may not apply, and we will not raise Goal 14 issues on appeal. There are many residents who are very concerned about traffic and about public safety. We would like to continue with the appeal in order to provide the public an opportunity to express those concerns and hopefully have them addressed." April 22nd, the Planning Commission appeal hearing is held. During the hearing, there's a request made that the written record be left open, and they provided a 3-day it's called a 777 period for comments, extra comments. May 27th, the Planning Commission hearing was continued. After deliberation, the Planning Commission voted 5-2 to sustain the appeal and deny the application based on a finding that the traffic impact study was inadequate. Therefore, the standard in Article 31, Section 31(6)(a), prohibiting a proposed use from causing dangerous intersections or traffic congestion, was found not to have been met. June 15th, the Planning Commission order was issued. And on June 25th, we received an appeal from Grant Goldman of the Planning Commission's final order. So at issue tonight is the Article 31, Section 31(60)(a) traffic standard that the Planning Commission found was not met by the applicant and is the reason for the appeal, which states that site access will not cause dangerous intersections or traffic congestion. They will have adequate visibility for motorists and pedestrians, and they'll be kept at the minimum needed for safe ingress and egress. Roadway capacity, speed limits, and number of turning movements shall all be considered. So just a bit of background information pertaining to the traffic issue. As with all agency-specific issues, when reviewing roads for, quote, dangerous intersections or traffic congestions, planning staff has historically relied on the County Public Works Department and ODOT to provide guidance and/or recommended conditions. Based on the approval of the traffic impact study by both ODOT and the County Public Works Department, and on the determination by ODOT that there were no issues of concern, staff originally found that the standard was met. However, the Planning Commission disagreed and found that the Article 31, Section 31(60)(a) standard had not been met, and that the traffic impact study was inadequate because it did not consider several factors that are pertinent to vehicle traffic in the Odell area and beyond. So the following are the appellant's assignments of error. The full language of the appellant's assignments of error in your packet. However, in brief, the assignments of error are that the Planning Commission misconstrued Section 31(60)(a) to require an undefined and arbitrarily determined evaluation of traffic congestion and safety impacts, where this criterion is directed exclusively to an evaluation of site access adequacy alone. By interpreting Hood River County Zoning Ordinance 31(60)(a) to require an evaluation of traffic conditions based on speculative and ill-defined risks, the Planning Commission imposed an arbitrary and vague standard for approval of this use. The traffic analysis done in this case was entirely consistent with industry custom, past practice in Hood River County at the direction of ODOT, County Public Works Department. The applicant did evaluate the impact at affected intersections, assuming that this user generated double the amount of traffic as might represent local and seasonal variations, and found no failures. As previously stated, Hood River County relies on ODOT and the County Public Works Department to include both proximal and downline intersections in their reviews, not just the site access points that may be impacted because of the vehicle traffic generated to and from a proposed site. The Planning Commission found that Article 31, Section 3160A standard had not been met because it should have included, at minimum, a study of intersections beyond the 4 noted in the traffic impact study, and which will also be impacted by traffic from the proposed use, the impact of additional traffic on the Odell community generally, and a selection of traffic study days and times that considers winter sports activities, fruit loop tourism, fruit harvest, and other days of high agricultural traffic, general summer tourism, and holiday delivery surges. While the applicant's doubling of the amount of traffic at the affected intersections may be one way to quantify the impact of additional vehicle traffic, the Planning Commission found that it does not account for negative consequences to intersections beyond those identified in the study, or the repercussions on the Odell community generally. A secondary issue, which is not an item of appeal before the board tonight, but has been raised by the opponents of the application, concerns the appropriateness of the proposed warehouse distribution facility as an allowed industrial use. The Planning Department and the Planning Commission both came to the same conclusion, that the proposed warehouse distribution facility is an allowed use in the M1 zone. When reviewing a proposed use, staff is limited to reviewing the activities associated with the use that will occur on the subject parcel. In this case, those activities include trucks delivering packages to a warehouse where they're received, sorted, temporarily stored, then shipped to individuals and to local businesses for resale or for use in the services those businesses provide. No on-site sales or services are offered, and only employees of the company, not customers, are allowed at the facility. This use is almost identical to the 5,000 square foot building approved in 2007 as a U.S. Postal Carrier Annex facility located on a parcel in the M1 zone about 300 feet away. Like the proposed use, the U.S. Postal Facility also receives, sorts, ships, and delivers packages to local businesses and individuals. The activities associated with both the proposed use and the existing U.S. Postal Service facility are required to be allowed somewhere within the available county zoning designations. If these uses are not appropriate in industrial zones, staff and local decision makers must then answer the question, if not in the industrial zones, then where? The only other reasonable zone is commercial. However, allowed uses in commercial zones include retail sales, commercial and professional services, short-term rentals, eating and drinking establishment, grocery stores, and other uses attracting high numbers of on-site customers. It's not likely that staff would be able to make findings that these uses and associated activities are similar to or even compatible with trucks delivering packages to a warehouse where they are received, stored, and shipped by delivery vehicles. After considering the evidence, the Planning Commission agreed with the Planning Department findings that the proposed facility is an allowed use within the industrial zone, provided it can be shown to meet the previously discussed Article 31, Section 3160A standard concerning site access and dangerous intersections or traffic congestion. Based on the information provided in the summary and the record of the application, staff recommends that the County Planning Commission's final order for appeal 26-003435, which denied industrial land use permit 25-0194 to construct a warehouse and distribution center, be affirmed, and that the appeal 26-0108 be denied. Thank you.
Can I ask a question of planning staff?
Yes.
You made the point that The only issue is the issue in the assignments of error by the appellant. Is at the end of this, we're either acknowledging that the conditions of approval have been met in full, or if they have not been met. So aren't we in fact considering all of the conditions of approval at that point?
Yes, the only appeal that was raised by the appellant was that the traffic study, but absolutely the board has to consider all standards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Munzer, do you have any questions?
No.
Eric, sorry, I see you got up. I have just one question. I believe there's a facility that's almost identical to the one that's being proposed, the Postal Carrier Annex facility that was approved in 2007. Can you speak to that building?
Yes, it was a annex facility. The way they operate is very similar in the fact that you have trucks delivering packages, they're sorted, stored, and then delivered with delivery vehicles. So it in fact operates very similar to the proposed use.
That was my only question. Thank you. Okay, next we will hear from the applicant. You have 10 minutes, and Allison, if you could please help me with the timer.
Yes.
Once we get started.
No, I think we'll be fine with just two for now.
We actually have 2 more chairs here if you need.
Thank you. Ben, are you gonna come up here?
All these chairs are so soft.
Not after you're here for 3 hours.
Well, compared to out there.
Give me 1 second. Just gonna share my screen real quick.
Looks
Good
good.
evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Carrie Richter. I'm an attorney at the law firm Bateman Seidel. I am here today representing the appellant and applicant AMS 2025 BTS Dallasport, Washington LLC. I appreciate the time you've given to me today, and I want to first thank staff for all of their hard work. They've gone through a lot of materials and put together a concise report, and I'm grateful. Before getting into the merits of the appeal, I need to raise a quick issue with respect to new evidence. This review on appeal is on the record, meaning there should be no new evidence considered. In your agenda packet at A15 through A24 is a letter from Thrive Hood River dated July 9th, arguing for a constrained view of the industrial zone to exclude this use based on previous county approvals. And they summarize a number of previous county approvals, including attaching copies of those approvals. Those are new facts. They are new facts put forward to assert that this use is not allowed. The applicant was not entitled to an opportunity to respond to those issues through this proceeding. And so for that reason, I ask that you strike A15 through A24 from the record before you begin your deliberations. Moving on, the application before you is for a site design review permit for a rural warehouse and distribution facility located on the abandoned Neal Creek Mill site on land that is zoned for industrial uses. With a tilt-up 48,000 square foot structure, This facility will receive goods from semi-truck delivery happening in the middle of the night. Goods will be sorted, packaged, and stored, and then delivered to the local rural community. There will be no public access into this facility for customers at any time. The Planning Commission's denial was based on the applicant's failure to satisfy a single design review criterion that county staff mentioned, 3160A. And the focus of my presentation is going to be on those three shortcomings. I'm going to discuss each in turn. The extent of the study intersections. The traffic analysis focused on the 4 intersections located closest to the site. These are the intersections that will see the greatest change as a result of traffic from this use. From this point, the traffic will get more diffuse. ODOT and the County Public Works Department selected these intersections. If the traffic experts at ODOT and Public Works had reason to believe other intersections were necessary for study, they would have identified them. And as staff pointed out, ODOT determined no issues of concern. This warehouse has been sized to accommodate existing delivery demand, which means that the impact to local streets from the new use is not likely to significantly change over current levels with existing deliveries. Regarding the impacts to the Odell community, using zip code population data, the applicant's traffic engineer projected that 70% of the traffic generated from this use will exit the site to the north from the Neal Creek Mill Road and OR 35 intersection to I-84, providing the fastest route for deliveries to the east, west, and north into Washington. 30% of the use-generated traffic will travel to the south to accomplish deliveries in Odell. The analysis does not support any claim of cut-through traffic. Most of the analysis that was provided most of the opposition testimony that the Planning Commission received was not about capacity, and it was not about intersections. It was about safety. And during the 2 months while this matter was pending review, the applicant engaged in a great deal of additional study to respond to and address the concerns related to safety, including confirming the adequacy of sight distance, the horizontal curves, an analysis of crash history concluding that there was no elevated safety concern. Most notably, there are no crashes reported over the last 5 years at Neal Creek Mill Road and OR 35 intersection, where 70% of the use trips will enter and exit. The Planning Commission heard significant concern about impacts to those residents located on Lower Neal Creek Mill Road and Stadelman Drives, which are shown in red here. These are residential local streets that run parallel to OR 35. The applicant has offered a condition for adoption by this board in this proceeding that would prohibit the use of these 2 local streets except for deliveries. Finally, regarding seasonal fluctuations, the applicant conducted a sensitivity analysis, assuming double the amount of traffic moving through the affected intersections. These types of assumptive traffic analysis offers an alternative means to address seasonal changes without the significant time associated with tracking these fluctuations. If you notice what the Planning Commission decided, they identified a number of seasonal fluctuations that they believe needed study. And if you take them together, it would take about 1 year for an applicant to do this work. Seems unreasonable for a use permitted outright in this zone. Under this sensitivity analysis, all study intersections retain capacity. The queuing on Davis Drive, the intersection most affected, will be less than 4 cars. What is summarized above is what lawyers call substantial evidence. This is evidence that a reasonable person would rely on to find that an approval standard is satisfied. This analysis is more broad in scope and detailed in study than is typically required for a use permitted outright. In the time I have remaining, I'd like to move beyond the evidence and raise a couple of points regarding interpretation. Before you can weigh the evidence, you have to decide what the standard means. What is before you is design review, whether the height, setback, orientation, and parking are adequate. 3160A is directed at site access, which I believe means driveways directly entering and exiting the site. This is only the driveways are something that the applicant controls. The applicant can't control Highway 35. Requiring study of every possible affected intersection would place an unacceptably heavy burden on the applicant. This study every intersection plus study every surge for every case would essentially stifle new development anywhere in the county. Many of you were probably instrumental in getting the mill bill passed in 2003, making this land shovel ready for industrial development and jobs. The Planning Commission's interpretation completely derails this objective. Although Thrive Hood River did not appeal the Planning Commission's decision, it has raised a separate argument about this use not qualifying because it would not be exclusively for wholesale. I'd like to suggest that the Thrive Hood River interpretation fails to take into account that the zone also includes processing, packaging, and storage uses, which are central to this use. As staff pointed out, this use is essentially identical to the postal carrier annex, and this use will never be open to the retail public. It would make no sense to put this in a commercial zone where it is essentially a warehouse. In conclusion, the applicant has selected a property which was planned for and deemed suitable for this type of warehouse distribution use. It will bring 110 living wage jobs to this area that will not happen if this application is not approved. The applicant has proceeded with traffic analysis that exceeded that which is typically required, and to the extent possible has responded to public concerns. This additional information and analysis was provided by a licensed, trained, and experienced traffic engineer, the only traffic engineer on record before the Planning Commission except for ODOT, who, after hearing all the testimony, concluded, I'm quoting from their May 5 letter, NV5 concludes that the proposed development will not cause dangerous intersections or traffic congestion. All motorists and pedestrians will have adequate visibility, taking into account roadway capacity, speed limits, and turning movements projected from this development. For these reasons, I urge you to approve this application. With my remaining time, I'd be happy to answer any questions. You should know that the applicant's representative, Dan Kamisek, is here sitting right next to me, and the NV5 traffic engineer, John Karnowski, is also in the audience and available to answer any questions on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have maybe like 30 seconds for any questions.
Chair, I have one question on the record.
Yes.
Clarify, in one of your submittals, you comment on the scoping memo, but I don't see the scoping memo itself in the record. Can you confirm that I'm correct that the scoping memo, the traffic impact study scoping memo is not part of the record?
I don't know what you mean by scoping memo. Can you give?
It was your words.
Then I screwed up.
Okay.
I don't, the memo that we submitted was attached to my letter. That it's an 8-page NV5 recitation of the materials that were in the record.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about scoping of the traffic impact study. So prior to the traffic impact study being conducted, I'm inferring from that there was a memo because you called it a scoping memo, but
It's not in the record.
Okay, thank you.
The discussions with ODOT,
Correct.
the initial one is not in the record.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Allison, just to confirm, are we at 10 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will move now. We have 10 minutes for those opposed to the application.
If you folks need another chair, you can feel free to grab that one there.
Well, just be two of us.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So you getting up too?
Thank you. Let me do a little. There we go. Make sure that. Let me do. Thank you, Commissioners. Chris Rubba for Thrive Hood River and John Mills. Before we get started, I want to address the issues that the applicant is talking about, appeals and new evidence. Their letter states that Thrive's appeal was initiated to object to the Planning Commission's decision. That's incorrect. We appealed the Planning Director's decision to the Planning Commission. There's nothing in Article 72 of our code that requires an appellant to anticipate or specify on the appeal form all of the issues that might emerge during that appeal process. ORS 215-416-11AE specifies that the county cannot legally limit the scope of a Planning Commission hearing to issues raised only on the notice of appeal. We are well within our rights to bring up the issue of whether or not this is wholesale distributing or outlet. As to new evidence, our letter analyzes 5 cases. 4 of those were specifically discussed in a staff memo dated April 28th and included in the record. New arguments and testimony about issues that are already in the record are allowed by statute at any point in this process. The applicant had the same opportunity that we did to read those decisions and interpret them and put them in context of existing law. Our arguments were submitted on July 9th. They've had them in hand for 2 months. The applicant himself has made arguments about those 4 decisions. Finally, it's a bit disingenuous to say that, to argue in their letter that we ought to explain that 2007 Postal Service Annex decision, and then 2 paragraphs later say that our letter, which does exactly that, ought to be thrown out. So, if I could pop the slides, I want to talk about wholesale distributing and outlet. Sophie's running for me, technologically challenged.
Is that what you're
And
giving
then
us
I'll give
here?
it to John, yes,
So these are copies of your slides?
Yes.
Thank you.
thank you.
And did you get one or?
Yeah.
Yep. Well, there's a list of topics I want to cover. Let's jump right into slide 2. What is allowed outright? This is zoned M1 and it's an exception area. In M1, the following uses and their accessory uses are permitted. A, commercial, B, manufacturing, and C, wholesale distributing or outlet. Next. It's an exception area, and because of that, commercial uses have to be limited to a less than urban scale. Legal clarified that in a 2017 decision. I'm not going to read all of these because I didn't realize we'd only have 10 minutes. I want to give John time. So next, let's go to the definition of wholesale distributing or outlet. This is where that that April 28th staff report comes in, the 4 decisions. The key one was in 2025, just 9 months ago. And it said that a wholesale distributing or outlet approved under 3110C will primarily serve other businesses with only limited retail sales to the general public. It distinguishes wholesale distributing and outlet then by the nature of the business. Limited retail sales to the public are okay, but they have to be incidental and subordinate to the wholesale use. Onward. Okay. So the applicant themselves testified that everything distributed from this proposed facility will have been sold at retail prior to distribution. That makes this not a wholesale distributing or outlet. It could be potentially evaluated as a commercial use, but the building exceeds 8,000 square feet. I'm going to skip to slide 6, again, in the interest of time. And item 3, alternative definitions. So if you throw out the 2025 decision, if you think that that's a one-off, that it shouldn't set precedent, is there any other way that you can define wholesale distributing and outlet that works? And I don't think so. Both the staff and the applicant have listed similar characteristics, and they both invoked the broad view. So let's look at similar characteristics next. The next slide. Similar characteristics are problematic logistically and legally. Logistically, you have to approve this use under the section of the code that was applied for, 31C.
characteristics that are germane to industrial uses in general aren't relevant. Characteristics in other sections of the code, like 3110B, aren't relevant. And criteria that aren't codified and available to all applicants are problematic. Lists of characteristics just don't work. Next slide. There's also, in addition to those logistical issues, legal issues. Mary Ellen Barolotti explained this really, really well. This code section allows conditional uses to consider other similar uses to those in the zone, but it doesn't allow uses permitted outright to consider similar characteristics. She says eloquently, the county authorized discretion only when considering conditional uses. It gave no such permission when considering outright uses. Let's go to the next slide. And at the very bottom, I want to bring up the Postal Service case. This approval was almost 20 years ago. It predated the 2017 legal case that required that you distinguish between commercial and industrial uses. Our letter explains that it could be approved today, but not because it has similar characteristics to this proposed use. It's a commercial use and it's less than 8,000 square feet. Next, the other alternative was the broad view, and this is where the Planning Commission was not relying on good information, frankly. The broad view prior to 2017 said that we'll just approve everything, industrial and commercial, without really any limitations, without even distinguishing between the two. That April 28 staff memo said that the 2025 decision approved unlimited resale sales to the general public. And we know that that's not the case. It was mischaracterized. The 2025 decision said that a wholesale outlet and wholesale distributing an outlet allows only limited retail sales to the general public. It has to primarily serve other businesses. The Planning Commission, of course, hadn't read that decision. They weren't aware of the actual text, so they accepted that broad view. So, conclusion, next. I think the 2025 decision sets a precedent that a wholesale outlet is one that primarily serves other businesses. The applicant says that all their goods are sold at retail. Alternative definitions, we know, lists of characteristics are logistically and legally indefensible. So therefore, this proposed use is not wholesale distributing or outlet and isn't allowed outright. The last slide talks about alternative sites and the argument that if it's not here, where would it be? There are other options that aren't explored. The fact that a specific site or specific zone hasn't been identified shouldn't force you to accept this appeal. Thanks. Questions on that bit? Okay, John.
Just one clarification before I start, Commissioner Babbitt, the scoping letter actually was the letter that the applicant's traffic consultant sent to ODOT and the county board. It outlined exactly what they're going to study. And it is definitely part of the record. I referred to it in my testimony. They have referred to it repeatedly that they submitted something to ODOT and the county, and that's how it all got started, how the traffic impact study got started.
So I presume that that's what it was. I simply could not find it. I did a complete search of the record and was not able to find it.
Yeah,
So,
it must be buried way back at the beginning.
thank you.
Sure. The other point before I start is the applicant's reference to a different.
1 minute left in the 10-minute time period. There's 1 minute remaining in the 10-minute time period.
I haven't started my testimony. You're saying that
You had 10 minutes total.
May we ask for another pause, extending that same courtesy to the applicant?
I don't think the attorney, if you could state that so our attorney can hear.
May we,
Sorry, can you repeat that?
may we ask for another 5 minutes, extending that same courtesy to the applicant?
We're remaining at 10 minutes for each, for the applicant and the opposed party. So you have 1 minute left.
The record contains extensive evidence of the dangerous conditions that the traffic impact study ignored, and this was repeatedly noted by several of the commissioners. Blind curves and no shoulders on Neil Creek Mill Road, for which photographic evidence was provided. There are rear-end collisions at Highway 35 from left turns, including a live flight incident, fruit truck rollovers that happen every year, school bus safety concerns that were spoken to and expanded on by ODOT itself in its Safe Routes to School report, which pointed out that the cutback through Odell is already dangerous for school children. It's a safety hazard. Slow tractor and farm operations, fog, snow, black ice, and snow plowing that dramatically reduce visibility and stopping distance. Testimony from farmers and residents. Bickford Orchard said more traffic will make this worse. And I will cut to the chase. The applicant went to ODOT for information that set the baseline, the AADT, the average and the annual traffic. It used COVID years to analyze those from 2019 to 2023. That's why the charts in the traffic impact study go straight down. That has a dramatic effect on the assumptions and distributions percentages that the applicant used. So does the cutback through Odell. If it is simply not true that 70% of the drivers are going to use Highway 35 because their algorithm will tell them that, hey, if you go through Odell, it's a lot faster to get to the Heights, in particular, the West Side and Cascade Locks. So
Thank you very much.
When they take that cutback, all of that traffic will go right by the elementary school. And
Thank you very much. We're at time. Thank you so much. We've gone over time. Is there any questions from Commissioner Babbitts or Commissioner Munzer?
My other question was about that scoping memo, and it sounds like it's still somewhere in the ether.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks again. We're at time. Is ODOT in attendance as an interested public agency?
We're not online and we're not seeing a raised hand.
So someone raising their hand, are you from ODOT?
I was just curious as the time of the day that the study was done.
Yeah, we can't take any.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Can't have a discussion.
No public comment right now.
Let me just point out, since Letty isn't here and can't see what's going on in the room.
Yes.
It's any mistakes that we make can result in this taking a longer process and bouncing through loop and stuff like that. So we're going to be really careful. And Chair Moretti from Peru is going to try to monitor that.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for your help, commissioners. Yes, all the information is in the public record. All right, and moving on, there is an opportunity for the applicant, 5 minutes for rebuttal if they're interested.
Okay, we'll bring up another chair. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do. Or you can grab one of those.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We don't have a lot of time, but I brought up Mr. Kanowski to talk a little bit about where the scoping memo is.
The scoping memo is in the appendix of the original traffic study.
This is in the TIS appendix.
It's in the appendix of this TIS. Sorry, I was not up here.
No, I
to
appreciate
say
you
that
coming
earlier.
up to do that. Thank you.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about the crash data that we pulled up in 20 seconds or less?
Sure. The crash data showed that there were very few crashes in the study area. There are even fewer crashes at the intersections to the north. There are occasional rear end crashes where people have stopped to turn left into one of the roadways to the north. We took a look at the COVID influence of the crashes. I think this was in one of my testimonies where there were actually there were more crashes during COVID than if I excluded the COVID crashes, meaning if I extended the time and to 7 years instead of 5 years and excluded the COVID era time, then we would have actually fewer crashes.
So I'm sorry, I should have clarified this. So you are the actual traffic engineer?
Yes, I'm sorry. I
Thank
should
you.
have
Okay,
said,
no,
I'm
I
Don
appreciate it.
Brunowski with NV5, a professional engineer.
I heard the NV5. I didn't immediately jump to concluding that was traffic engineer.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, John. In conclusion, I want to point out that with respect to the new evidence, this Chamness-Robles decision that is the core part of the opponent's discussion, that term does not appear anywhere in the Planning Commission's record. What the details of that decision were is not anywhere in the Planning Commission's record. So the opponents can't bring those up to prove anything when all that staff said about this was that there were 4 decisions before and they all for similar uses. And in my testimony, I talked about how there are similar uses, how there is a soil and gravel company that will deliver the gravel to your house. That's next door. I talked about that in my letter. So this discussion needs to not be considered beyond what was presented to the Planning Commission. Thrive brought to you a bunch of papers that they submitted just now. I would like that before you accept this additional testimony into the record, first, I suspect the chair hasn't seen this additional information. And if you're going to accept it, you need to ask the applicant or the opponent, where in the record you can find the statements that they are asserting in these pages, because that is the burden that they bear. You will notice in my letter, I made a point of citing to where everything can be found. And that's what supports my claims that these are not new evidence. There is no support for the claim that this development will change the character of the roads in this area generally. We figured out we will add about 2% more traffic. This is nothing more than Chicken Little thinking. Catastrophizing where there's no demonstrable evidence that these events will occur. Thrive Hood River has painted this picture of an out-of-state conglomerate that has no idea what is going on. What I can tell you is that the employees from this facility, all of them, are likely to be residents of Hood River County, and that is in the record. They will be aware of slow-moving farm equipment, snowy conditions, ski season influx. These drivers will navigate around slow-moving farm equipment just like they do today, safely and as members of this community. This is not in any way an unusual or an out-of-the-ordinary use. This use is very similar to the Postal Annex. The Neal Creek Forest products, soil, rock, and gravel available for delivery. These are the types of uses that you probably fought for when you fought for the mill bill to make this land suitable for industrial uses. There is no reason to impose an extraordinary burden of proof on this use that will have an entirely unremarkable impact. And in conclusion, I just want to point out that this notion of the Planning Commission saying you have to study beyond the 4 intersections, you have to study beyond with respect to seasonal influxes. As the applicant, they are entitled to know what beyond means. And that's one of the problems with the Planning Commission's decision is that the applicant essentially has to guess under which shell lies the P. So for that reason, I hope you will find that we have satisfied 3160 and the remaining part of the criteria and approve this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any final questions by the commissioners? Guess I just defer to Land Use Council regarding the materials that were submitted by the opposition.
Are you referring to the hard copies that were brought up to the dais and to staff as well?
Yeah.
Am I correct in hearing that those are hard copies of the presentation that Thrive put on? Just merely the slides printed out?
That's
No.
my understanding. I haven't opened them.
No. There's a testimony sheet. There's another testimony sheet. There's a copy of the July 9th letter, which you have seen, and I don't know if all the slides were seen.
Okay, so then the question is whether that packet of information contains additional evidence outside of the record, which is a question that's been raised in a couple other areas, throughout the hearing thus far. An option that the Board of Commissioners has is to ask staff to review the materials, that packet, anything else that you wish staff to review to determine whether it is evidence outside of the record or not. That's something that might take a moment. I personally don't have a copy of the physical copies that were handed out, so that's not something I can assist with in this exact moment. But the interest of being deliberative, that's an option in front of you.
I would just identify that our clerk identified that in a quick review of the materials, not all were presented in the presentation. So our chair did not receive the materials.
Yeah. They were beforehand.
I'm sorry if that was a question posed to me, I missed it.
Did you hear what Allison said?
I did not. Could someone repeat?
Allison, could you say that again?
That I as the chair have not seen all of the materials is what I heard.
Right, and we had a quick review of the presentation versus the handouts. It was a very quick presentation, but she could not verify that what was in the presentation was in the packet as well.
So I would suggest that because this packet isn't available to Chair Moretti, who needs to participate in this, and because there was a presentation that was made that you were able to see, I would suggest, and you haven't looked at this yet, have you? No. So we have not touched this. So I would suggest that we not look at this and instead discuss the evidentiary question that was raised by the applicant concerning the appellant's, but the appellant's reversed now. The questions which were raised concerning the Chambliss-Robles decision, it seems to me like that would be more important to resolve than this, which we can easily simply not accept since it's not available to everyone participating.
Yes.
Is that legally sound?
The board has authority to do that.
Great. So should we, I'll make a motion then that we reject this packet of papers because of its unavailability to the online participant.
I would second that.
Moved by Commissioner Babbitts, second by Commissioner Munzer. Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Did we roll call? I think we have to roll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Babbitts, thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer.
Yes.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. And then the question was, is the Chambliss-Robles case, is that new evidence or was that?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay.
I think staff was just
Okay, working on it.
I'm
Great.
trying to, I'm not sure where it is. Do you have a comment to make now?
I didn't hear any of that. Or
the question is whether you have anything you wish to say to us concerning the evidence question on Chemnitz Robles.
So
about a game of telephone here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll turn things over to Keith, who can address the Chemnitz Robles issue.
Yeah, so in the first 7-day continuance period, I listed 4 examples in the nearby area of uses that we'd approved that were a kind of a broad view of wholesale. One of those, I didn't name it Chemnitz Robles, but I put the planning commission, planning department file number on there and referred to it as a plumbing supply store wholesale. So it was in the record. The only, staff looked at what Thrive submitted. And we looked at new arguments or a different way to argue something different than new evidence. The only truly piece of new evidence would have been the Chalk Gymnasium decision that they mentioned in their comments. Otherwise, we didn't find any new evidence. There may have been new ways to look at things or new arguments, but we were looking expressly for new evidence. At the advice of our county counsel, Chris Crean, it had to be material evidence, something that was significant in nature. And honestly, even the Chalk Gymnasium, we didn't consider significant to the nature of this appeal.
And that's why staff did not object to it in the beginning based on counsel's advice that it was immaterial. And therefore we didn't raise it as a outside the record issue.
This is county counsel's advice. Thank you. Chair, if I could suggest, I think that the safest thing to do with regard to the letter from Thrive, which is at issue, is to accept that into the record and acknowledge the applicant's opposition to that and be really clear as we are deliberating as to whether or not we're depending on that, and let Luba sort that out, because allowing it into the record, and I'm sorry, should I have just made a motion to that effect so we could deliberate on it? Let me make a motion.
That sounds good.
Yeah, let me do this for me. Let me make a motion that we accept the contested letter into the record, and if it's seconded, then I can explain why. I'm sorry, did we lose the chair? It looks like we have a bit of a freeze here.
Does she need to reconnect?
Do you have the ability to text her?
Says.
Oh, there she is. Oh, great. So Chairman Revy, welcome back. So I made a motion, it has not yet been seconded, but my motion was to accept the contested Thrive memo into the record. And I'll explain why after we get a second.
Okay. There's been a motion by Commissioner Babbitt, second by Munzer. Commissioner Babbitt. We're discussion.
Yeah, my logic here is, so first of all, we have recommendation from our counsel that that this is not actually new evidence, that there's anything that he's worried about, and rather than going through an elaborate process of taking argument on this, which we could go ahead now and stop the main hearing and debate that, I think it would be more prudent simply to accept it into the record, acknowledge that it has been contested, so that's in the record, and then to be really clear as we enter deliberations as to the degree to which we are or are not, depending on the material in that memo, and leave that to Luba to sort out, which they are very good at doing. But hopefully, good chance it won't be necessary, but if it is, they'll have to sort it out. So that's my argument.
Sounds good. Any further discussion on that? Okay, Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Okay. We've got our evidence. So I guess any other questions, commissioners?
I do have a question, and I'm not sure where in the stage this fits, but the applicant made a comment that that they had proposed that they were that they would accept a condition to prohibit use of local streets. And I am trying to understand what abilities we have to condition a approval. I have not dealt with a industrial use permit before, so I don't know the nature of what conditions can be placed on that. There's one example given, but there may be other examples we want to give. So I'm wondering if we could get a primer on that. I don't know if this is the right time or if there's another time for that.
Thank you, Eric.
So I think they have an answer.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah.
This is an outright allowed use. The board certainly has the opportunity to add conditions to the permit. The condition was recommended by the applicant. The condition relates to an applicable approval criteria. So I think it's completely appropriate to add the condition if the board so chooses to go that route. If they chose to reverse the decision and approve the application, they could choose to modify it by adding a condition, one or more conditions.
I'm sorry, who could choose to modify that?
The board.
Oh, us. Okay.
Yes.
And what if, for example, we had a condition to require a maximum trip count? Is that the sort of thing that could be attached to a industrial use permit?
I think that gets a little more challenging, just in regards to how that would work in practice. In thinking about it, I guess first of all, it'd be a tough condition to enforce. It would probably require some instructions on how that assessment would happen. Is that the applicant's responsibility to do a later traffic study to determine are they beyond their capacity of what they said? Is it County Public Works? Is it ODOT? I mean, whose responsibility is to do that? Plus, it seems like we have a condition already in place in the decision that says that if that essentially the use must operate and be cited as shown on their submitted materials and as described in their application. If they do something that's beyond that, then that triggers a new, either a modification of their permit or could require a new application. And I think it's covered. Those are my first reactions to that.
So you're saying if they had entirely misrepresented the nature of the traffic from this, that would be subject to county processes?
If they misrepresented the type of facility that would operate and the level of traffic that they were anticipating. So, for example, the truck traffic was, not during these hours, but it ended up being these hours, then that's something that you can point to.
Well, they specified in the traffic study a specific count and then use this 2x buffer. And if it turns out to be 10x that, isn't that the material difference?
I guess I would just question, we have a traffic impact study. That study is based on their proposal. And so if it operates as they say that they're going to operate, and we have a traffic study that anticipates the level of traffic, then there's some assumption that it's going to function as they have described. And so I guess I still argue or question, how would we know that it's 10 times that amount if it's operating as it's described and as has been evaluated by their traffic folks. Hopefully that makes sense.
I'm not sure I understand. I mean, I'm not suggesting Keith has to sit there with a clicker, but there are ways to measure traffic count. Just put a loop down in the driveway.
So I guess as part of a future condition, you would want to outline who's gonna determine that they're outside of the 2 times of traffic.
I'm just trying to explore because they brought up the issue of potentially conditioning so that they're not allowed to use local streets. Well, that's the sort of thing that is also going to be difficult to monitor and verify. But there is that assertion, and it was brought up that could be a condition. So not being familiar with what sort of conditions are placed on industrial use permits, I'm exploring what the universe is of things that you can look at.
Right. I think it's certainly possible that you can add that condition. I'm just speaking from a staff level of how do we actually enforce that condition? And it should be clarified in the condition about what the expectations are. So 10, 20 years from now, when there's new planners, they can understand, okay, well, this is what the board meant when they implemented that condition.
And you're actually not allowed to leave, so don't go down there. But I'm wondering if we get a legal clarification on the nature of conditions that can be applied on an industrial use permit.
So we go back and we look at what are the criteria in the code that you need to find satisfied in order to approve the permit, and whether there are any conditions that you can attach to a criteria to find it satisfied. So there needs to be that relationship between a criterion and the condition you attach. I think staff's point about the logistics of, so while you may legally attach such a condition of approval, I think staff's point about the logistics of enforcing that condition is something that we should be thinking about from the outset before making a decision on what exact condition you want to apply to your decision. It's not worth having a condition of approval if it's not something that staff's not going to be able to administer.
Thank you.
And I guess there's another point that if that's the path that the board would like to take, certainly we will be generating a final order outlining the decision. It's going to come back to the board. And the board, we can take a first crack at trying to create a condition that addresses what you're looking to do. And then you'll have the opportunity to say, yes, that's what I'm looking for, or not. And we can, in the creation of that, the final wording in the condition, we can take things into consideration about how it could be enforced.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, then at this point, the hearing will be closed and no further testimony or argument is allowed. And now the board will deliberate and either make a decision tonight or decide to continue the hearing at a future date. What are your thoughts?
So the traffic study was done in September, which was during harvest.
September 10th.
Yeah, September 10th. I can't remember what page it was. It was done during harvest for sure. So there was definitely an uprise in traffic at that point in time. That's one thing that I noticed in that part of it. Definitely not during the ski season, which I definitely think that brings more traffic to our valley than that time of the year.
Do you have a bunch of points you want to make or?
No, go ahead.
So I was going to suggest just sort of from a methodology point of view, if we could first figure out if we want to, what issues we want to talk about.
Sure.
Do we want to restrict our discussion to the traffic issue? Do we want to talk about the M1 zone question or anything else that supposedly, I'm not sure what else has been raised for discussion.
Well, the appeal was over the traffic study, and so that's kind of where.
No, I think it's reasonable to certainly want to spend time talking about
Yeah,
it. I just want to know if we can put aside the other issues or not.
yeah. Let's start with the traffic impact issue.
Let's
And
hear-
then, yeah, let's start with that, and then we can move on to just appropriate and allowed use in an industrial zone. Since it was brought up and added to the record, so traffic impact issues.
Trying to figure out.
We thought about this.
Well, the down part of the traffic into other intersections was, I think, the question that was the big question by the planning commission. And I don't know by this traffic study if they did the 2 times the amount of traffic trying to decide if, if it was good at those intersections, is it going to affect the other intersections? Now, the traffic going to the Heights of Hood River, is that going to be affected by coming through Odell? Is this a good possibility? If they were wanting to put some sort of whatever they said, prohibiting certain streets to be used, is that something that we should consider in this, just like you talked about earlier? That is a hard one.
So I think that there's an interesting question. So I'm just going.
Remind us to use all of the data that was provided in the record.
Thanks. I have a whole bunch of notes, but I think this particular question that Commissioner Munster raised gets down to the discussion that in the planning commission transcript, Commissioner Celtic-Garrett's argument. And that sort of seemed to shift the flow. So I thought that was a good place to start. And he starts saying that we're using a broad interpretation of wholesale distribution. But then the applicant makes an argument for a very narrow interpretation of the access standard. And that should only look at ingress and egress, not the broader effects. And so when I looked at that, I thought that he was correct in criticizing the attorney's interpretation of the access standard to only refer to ingress and egress. It did in the second clause of the code. It modifies that by talking about ingress and egress, but in the access, the one that refers to causing dangerous situations or congestion, I think is the terms. Sorry, I should have it like plastered on the wall or something. But in that section, it does not say the ingress and egress. I don't think refer to that. I think that it is. I don't think that there's a solid basis on which to say that we're just looking at monitoring traffic in driveways. That just seems kind of wrong. But the question I see is one of what standard you use to determine what the appropriate scope is. And he says the scope that the standard that he suggests, and it appears the planning commission accepted, was he said, actually I can quote this, a reasonable person reviewing that evidence would conclude that additional traffic from the proposed development could worsen these conditions. The applicant has not demonstrated the project will not make things worse at these locations, and that the burden of demonstration rests on the applicant under section 31.60A. So his standard was a reasonable person. I don't know where that comes from. And that's not the way that I read 31.60A. If we go down to 31.60A, it says site access will not cause dangerous intersections or traffic congestion. They will have adequate visibility for motorists and pedestrians and will be kept at a minimum needed for safe ingress and egress. Roadway capacity, speed limits, and number of turning movements shall be considered. I view that as a prescription for an expert analysis.
Right.
And so I see that we have, in this county and in the state, we have a system set up where we spend a lot of money on roads. And it starts by making decisions that we're going to build a road. Highway 35, we know, has been here for well over 100 years in different forms. But when money was put into certain sets of improvements that ODOT took over, there were engineers involved in that. And that's kind of the tip of an iceberg, which has all the downstream decisions that are made to keep those roads operating and functioning. And I see in this case that the land use decision is one more step in the process that started with building of the road and determining that the road could handle a certain amount of traffic, and then following down to a question of people want to build things along the road, and every single thing that has to be built has to go through our community development department. So I see that process is one where we call upon a professionals involved from both the county and the state to determine the scope of the analysis. And I don't understand this reasonable person standard that he's suggesting, and maybe one of you can convince me that I've missed something on it. But I have to figure out how to say this without depending on things that are external to the record. This is just from an argumentation point of view. Everyone thinks that they're a traffic engineer. Everyone thinks that they're a parking engineer. Drive a car because they park in the car. But we know from the roles that we play that there is an expertise to analyzing this. And I read the record and I saw the comments, the very room full of reasonable people that making very reasonable comments. And I'm saying, yeah, that totally makes sense. But at the end of the day, I see that the only way to consistently manage the process to consistently decide what gets to be built and what doesn't get to be built is to have a process which is mediated is probably the wrong word, which is implemented through competent professionals who are not looking at just this because this is in their neighborhood. People are looking at every single application that comes through and looking at every single traffic analysis that's done, and ODOT looking at every single one that's done in the state and determining, is this something which will cause a problem or not? I was surprised that they're not, there was no equivocating in their responses, right? This wasn't close for them. This was no problem. I don't know how I could interpret 31.60 to give us the right to say, but wait, let's go back and rescope this to consider something broader, because they should have known that traffic impacts flow outwards. I'm pretty sure that the traffic engineer knows that. I'm pretty sure that the ODOT engineer knows that. I'm pretty sure that Corey and her department understand that. And frankly, they're the ones, ODOT and county engineering are the ones who are going to have to fix this if it's broken, right? So they have every motivation to get it right. So I'm happy to hear why I'm wrong. But
no, I don't disagree with you. Yeah. There were expertise people that did this. I'm just, again, kind of reiterating what we've all read is the concerns about that. And I don't think I'm no road expert by any means.
Right. So you are a car expert,
yes, but I'm not arguing with the fact that we have an expert take care of this, and that is what they do. That's not what we do. And so I do understand that.
I guess what I'm saying is, well, I should have said at the start, if we are to say that it was scoped incorrectly, then I would think we would have to, I think their attorney is quite correct in saying that you have to be specific as to what you are asking for. And we have to figure out a process by which we could do that. And so the question is, are we going to question the scope and send it down that path where we determine what the scope should be or establish a process to determine what the scope should be? Or are we going to say that has already happened and that we don't have a reason to deny it under the applicant having answered the question according to how we interpret 31.60?
Right. No, we need to be consistent in the way that we do these things.
Right.
I agree with that 100%.
So what conclusion do you draw from that then? I'm sorry.
Well, I see what you're saying, and I do understand that. We hired an expert to do it, and I don't think anybody in this room is an expert besides the guy who did it. And at some point, I suppose that we have to take that information and either, accept it or not, I suppose, is how we put that. So.
Yeah, I mean, just looking through the evidence, both the county Public Works Department and ODOT pre-approved the applicant's scope of the traffic impact study. And, the planning staff originally found that the standard in Article 31, Section 31.60, the site access will not cause dangerous intersections or traffic congestion has been met. I'm just, taking quotes from ODOT, who received a copy of the submitted traffic impact study, and after review has determined no issue of concern. ODOT has no issue with the land use application moving forward. They are the experts. ODOT Public Works reviewed, again, the scope of work, the 80-page TIS traffic impact study submitted to ODOT Public Works. Again, no issues were expressed from either agency. After comments were received and traffic concerns were received from Thrive and many other individuals, the planning staff contacted ODOT and Public Works again to confirm ODOT's approval. And ODOT reiterated its approval of the traffic impact study and proposed the facility they're willing to send an additional approval letter. In order to address the concerns of seasonal traffic increases, the applicant's traffic engineer doubled the amount of traffic. Commissioner Munzer, you mentioned it was done in September and a very busy time of the year for us, and so doubling that. On Highway 35, even then, there were still acceptable non-failing levels of service. So just looking at that evidence and what I'm seeing from the experts, I have to take what the experts say because that's who conducted the study and who approved it and what our staff was
I guess just put
recommended.
a finer edge on that. What you quoted was really interesting. To me, I describe that as the "Are you guys sure?" Question that was asked to ODOT and to the county. Lots of people are saying that this is a problem. Are you guys sure that you've covered this? And they came back and said, "Yeah." Issue
multiple times.
I see one time in the record. Were there more than one?
There was with the Thrive, after the Thrive comments, and then after doubling the study.
So I saw there was there were questions in the first hearing before the planning commission. There were a bunch of questions concerning the accidents and the whole broader set of questions about how you conduct the study. Why didn't you include all this information that you could have easily included about accidents?
And how the road was named or something.
I don't remember that. Okay. But there were some questions, and the applicant went back with the traffic engineer and provided additional information. which we have, and then that additional information resulted in a second letter from ODOT. I didn't see a second letter from County Public Works. I saw a second letter from ODOT. Did you see anything beyond that, Commissioner Moretti?
I'm going through my notes. Let's
And there's a
see.
lot of record, and I
Yeah,
easily could have
there's
missed
a-
something.
80-page CIS to ODOT Public Works. And
Yeah, I'm definitely not questioning if the traffic study was done right or not, via what the scope of work.
Right. I'm sorry, you're not questioning whether it was done to the scope of work. You agree that it was,
It
you
was
accept
the scope of work, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the question is, do we want to modify that scope of work?
Right.
Yeah.
But then when you read it, and they say this down, they figured that the down, or it says that the downhill sections would not be. How did it say that? Downhill sections, they didn't need to do it.
Downstream, you mean?
Yes, downstream.
Yeah.
They didn't need to go any further with it because they had already doubled the amount and they figured it wouldn't affect the downstream.
Yeah.
So.
And because I can't find the multiple times I'll say that, you know, they went back to ODOT.
At least once.
At least once. At least once to confirm that they
Just kind of as
addressed the concerns.
I found it very difficult because we had, you know, about 1,000 pages of testimony, and it was submitted to us in a way that's not searchable. So I pulled it into my computer to make it searchable. I would like to kind of just leave that note that in the future, we have to figure out how to make sure that all the materials on our website are searchable so that people don't have to struggle like Commissioner Moretti is now to figure out if something was or wasn't cleanly in the record.
Right. It was definitely difficult.
Last night, I decided to finally just suck it all in, run it through OCR, and then have access to it. So I'm not hearing disagreement with my statement that I am prepared, possibly with conditions, to accept that the traffic impact has been met.
No, I'm not arguing on that.
So should we talk about possible conditions?
Yes.
So the applicant has suggested that that her client, I'm sorry, that the attorney for the applicant has suggested her client would be okay with a condition to prohibit use of local streets and except for local deliveries. And I think that would be a reasonable condition to put in. Again, it's probably not going to be super easy to patrol, but I know that in the past when I've challenged neighbors to actually demonstrate something, it is amazing how resourceful neighbors can be when they want to prove that someone is cheating on something. So I'm going to presume that the neighbors would be able to enforce that.
They would help enforce it, patrol it.
Exactly. So, so I'd like to suggest that we consider that. I'll start there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think keeping them off of Stoutland Drive and the thoroughfares through Odell, if that's not, if that's not their route. And I struggle a little bit with how going through Hood River would be faster to Cascade Locks. Maybe your phone tells you that, but I don't know.
So you're talking about a different scope than I was talking about. So let's talk about that. So I understood, I don't know this neighborhood nearly as well as you do. I've driven those back roads just a handful of times. There used to be a Taylor on one of those streets. That's what I remember. 30 years ago.
But that does fall under the same category a little bit, right?
Well, no, but so I was specifically saying there's like the streets that run parallel to 35.
Right.
Right in that area. You just mentioned going through Odell.
Well, I think that the way I understood that a little bit was that they would not prohibit, they had the space where they would prohibit them to be able to use that, but also if they were gonna, the freight trucks, the larger freight trucks and things like that should be prohibited to only Highway 35, I guess is.
I just think we have to be, if we're gonna put a condition, we're gonna have to help
Very
Keith
careful.
and Eric
Mhm.
know what we're trying to condition. So I'm just trying to be as explicit as we can on this. And both of you understand Odell and Odell traffic much better than I do, so I don't know the right way to express. Are we talking about simply the immediate houses that are, I mean, there's the cluster of houses that's between those two industrial, side spaces, between the packing house and, the
Yeah,
mill site, right?
yeah, I think what they're getting at is they need to prohibit the larger freight trucks or even the vans that aren't just distributing in those areas from being on those roads.
From being on those roads, but you just talked about going through Odell.
Well, I'm just trying to decide if there was a way to put it to where we made sure that the big freight trucks weren't somehow coming up through Odell to deliver to there, that they were exclusively using Highway 35 and we weren't sending them through a little bit of town. I guess, I don't know if we can even
So you're
do that.
suggesting a condition along those lines
Yes,
to keep the large trucks out of the residential neighborhoods?
yes.
Yeah. Letty,
What do we mean by large trucks?
I think he's talking about
The freight trucks, the semi trucks,
what
The semis,
term of art for them that they have a name for.
well, they had a straight.
yes,
There's the truck that
16-wheelers or,
comes from the airport or whatever with all the stuff on it, and then there's the little vans that deliver it out from there.
mm-hmm,
Keeping the freight trucks off of the rural roads is the larger freight trucks is very important. If we can somehow intertwine that into this.
I guess I would counter that, we don't do that for fruit trucks.
You're right.
right, I guess, yeah, I'm just worried about, enforcement or consistency.
Well, and theoretically, they can't come across Tucker Bridge with a big truck anyways. Over
Right.
by the weight, so that might somewhat take care of it, so.
I think that may be information on the evidence.
Oh, sorry.
Not positive, but
All right,
You just have to follow whatever road rules and regulations, right? Travel.
oh, if we could at least keep them off of restrict them in the Odell area. Close to what those cross streets, like what they were describing in the map. And basically that would be Stadelman Drive.
so, I mean, effectively, you're saying, condition it so that ingress and egress, both for distribution vans as well as for the big trucks, be directed to the intersections
That they
covered in the
That they-
traffic study, and to not use other routes through Odell, not use other routes through Odell except for local deliveries.
something like that. But again, I don't, but
Letty, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what they proposed and what the attorneys proposed and showed in their presentation, that they wouldn't use Settlement Drive for their trucks unless they were delivering items to those residencies.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that we describe that sufficiently that staff.
Yeah,
might not
keep the traffic to those
work out.
traffic
right,
areas that were studied. Essentially Highway 35.
Get staff to see if they'll nod and that we've given them enough. That was a legal question.
In addition to the workability of the language itself, if the board could also discuss what aspect of 31.60 sub A this condition would satisfy. So turning back to the language of that particular criterion, what's the concern that you're identifying? And why would that condition satisfy that concern?
Good question. My argument would be that that their traffic impact study presumes that the traffic quickly disperses onto that arterial, and that that is presumably the justification for not considering downstream events in the other direction into Odell, and therefore to be consistent with them not causing dangerous intersections or congestion in that direction, they would need to be directing the primary traffic in the direction they said it would be directed. But they studied it being directed. So
Yes.
that meet your requirement?
To paraphrase, to make sure that I understand, because I think I understand you correctly. So the condition of approval would require them to adhere with the traffic patterns that they identify in the TIS, because the conclusions that they draw in the TIS are premised upon what they've modeled the traffic patterns to be.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay,
Yes.
great. I did it.
Thank you.
So then the second question, let me think for a minute. So I guess, so here, I'll just throw out my thinking that we have a traffic analysis that was done presuming a certain typical traffic, and they did a sensitivity analysis doubling that traffic. And I suspect that people are suspicious as to whether they were truthful or whether in time that's that in time will they hold to that level of traffic. So if we could put a condition of approval that the level of traffic can't exceed the 2x sensitivity analysis, the number of trips, the trip count can't exceed that. I think that also, I would use the same argument for that I just used, and I see you nodding. So hopefully that holds together. I think that would make me more comfortable that
We just gotta figure out how that would be monitored and.
again, I'm not sure why staff thinks it's hard to monitor that sort of thing, but I suspect that people will be setting up cameras and having their AI agents, count the number of vehicles and that sort of thing. And, if they're not doing that today, they will be doing that in 3 years. So I'm not too worried about being able to monitor the amount of traffic coming and going from that facility.
And we can request them to do that.
Well, so that's interesting because that's like when you do, by analogy, when you do, wastewater discharge permit, like Full Sail's required to monitor their own solid discharges into the system and to report if they violated it and that sort of thing. So I suppose it also could be something that we could require, but then recognize for any large trip generating activity, I think we're opening ourselves up to why aren't you including that condition there? Is it just because you don't like Amazon, or is it because it's a different nature, or what? We're not supposed to be legislating here. We're supposed to be making sure that we're complying with the mountain zoning ordinance. So I'm not, I'm not sure that I like this idea, but I'm throwing it out for discussion because that's the best way to figure out if it makes sense.
I think it's a great idea, just don't know exactly how to get it on there.
And I think it's consistent with the traffic impact study. And that's how it meets the 31.60A.
I think Chad was questioning whether there was any way to enforce it. Can we measure it?
Yeah, I also am not sure about that either. But putting it out there is what we're requesting of the applicant.
I'm not against putting it out there, that's for sure.
So just so procedurally, I think what I understand is that if we, make a motion to that effect and then pass that along to staff, they will put it into an order. And that will come back does that come back to the chair to approve, or does that come back to the body to approve? How is approval?
Depends on how the board votes. They can vote for the chair to sign, or we can bring it back to the full board for the full board to approve.
Got it. So either authorize the chair or bring it back to the full board. Okay, so those are our options. Did you hear those, Letty?
Yes.
Great.
And then we already know the other two measures are already included, right? The two direct access points onto Highway 35 will be closed. And then delivery vehicle travel times will be routed outside of the peak travel times at the noted intersections.
So those were conditions that were in the initial staff decision.
Okay.
And so if we make a motion,
those are included already
on modifications to that rather than starting from scratch. Is that your question?
Yeah, just wanting to make sure we know that those are already included.
Which brings us back around then to the M1 question, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're ready. Are we ready to get off the track?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Well,
Sorry, could I just check in with staff real fast? Staff, do we have sufficient direction from the Board of Commissioners on that point?
Yeah, the only issue is the enforcement question. And again, as Commissioner Babbitts has stated, we will formulate based on the discussion an order, which will include draft conditions that we will bring back. And then the commissioners can tell us whether you feel though it's appropriate, or if it was written, you'd like to see it written different.
And so when we make the motion, we can be as specific as we can about that.
Okay.
So Letty, you were going to talk about the M1 question?
Yeah, I'll let you two speak and then I can fill in.
Oh, come on.
Okay, if you want me to go first, happy to.
Oh, you're
okay.
the chair, you get to choose.
Yeah, before I freeze, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, just looking at the work that our planning staff did and what's in the record, the proposed distribution facility that is permitted outright fits within the uses allowed under section 31.10. The Planning Commission agreed that the purposed use is appropriate with the M1 zone and consistent with the broad types of other uses permitted in the zone previously. And when reviewing the use, staff is limited to consider the activities that will occur. But in this case, activities include trucks delivering packages to a warehouse where they are received, sorted, temporarily stored, and shipped to local businesses and individuals. So there are no on-site sales or services that are offered, and only employees of the company, not customers, are allowed at the facility. The definition of wholesale is not dictated by state law, but rather determined by us, the county. And
Uh-oh. We lost you, Letty. Are you back?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Your last sentence you might want to repeat. You said it's not, the nature of wholesale is not dictated by
state. Yeah, the definition of wholesale is not dictated by state law, but rather determined by the county and guided by how it has been applied historically. And staff found several examples within 750 feet of the proposed facility in the Lower Mill Industrial Park, which show that the county has a broad view of the definition of wholesale as it applies to business activities in the industrial zone. We talked about the U.S. Postal Carrier Annex facility, which is almost identical to this applicant. And yes, staff notes that the activities associated with both the proposed distribution facility and the existing U.S. Postal Service facility are required to be allowed somewhere within the available county zoning designations. But to me, it's clear that this has met the criteria. It's appropriate for the M1 zone.
No, oh, I struggle with this one. I mean, it's the planning commission already decided that this was an outright use and.
But they rejected the
But they
permit, so
rejected-
therefore they never really, they stated that they would agree with this, but they never did.
Right, right.
So I think we get to do it.
I mean, we have lots of like businesses in the same area doing the same types of things, right? It needs to be, I mean, if it isn't there, where? I mean,
Yeah, I guess so. I guess this is. I read the staff analysis, and I think Commissioner Moretti basically said that she suggests that we accept the staff analysis that was in the initial approval memo. And our attorney has reviewed this. Our community development staff has reviewed this, and this is their interpretation. I heard the arguments that Thrive presented, and they sound compelling. But as I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know how to take something which our attorney has stated and say, yeah, but we're going to accept what another advocate says. So this is just the classic example of something which this is what LUBA gets to sort out. I would suggest, or I would agree with Commissioner Moretti on accepting staff's interpretation on this issue, accepting staff's analysis on this issue, and they can appeal it and have it resolved as to whether this Gemini Robles case is relevant or not. I spent a lot of time on this, but I could not get into that enough to understand what was going on. So I'm going to trust staff on this. This is my conclusion. Are you agreeing with that also, Letty?
Yes, I have to trust the experts again.
Should we make a motion?
Could I ask a clarifying question just real quick here? So if I'm hearing the commissioners correctly, the commissioners are finding that this is an outright permitted use under 31.10 sub C based solely on the staff analysis of this criterion. Is that correct?
31.10 C?
Yep.
That's the M1. Okay, I'm sorry, the M1. Sorry.
Yeah, the M1, sorry. Yeah, the M1.
The traffic one, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. So repeat your question again, though.
So you're finding that this is an outright permitted use in the M1 zone based solely on staff's analysis of this criterion. Is that correct?
That's what I stated. Thank you. Should I make a motion?
Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Entertain a motion?
Yeah, exactly. How about, can you give me like a minute or two to write my thoughts down?
Of course.
Okay, I think I have it.
Let's hear it.
I move to reverse planning commission order number 26-0035 and approve the application consistent with staff's initial, with the planning director's initial approval file with 2 additional conditions. So in other words, I'm taking what Eric wrote and adding 2 additional conditions to it. Those conditions being, I'm gonna need some help here. Number 1, conditioning maximum traffic count to be within the 2x sensitivity analysis that was done in the traffic impact study, and second, to limit limit ingress and egress to the routes considered in the traffic study, except where necessary to service local community. Did I get that right? Did someone get that down? Okay, did you get that?
You want to read that?
That would be really helpful. Yeah.
Bear with me.
Sure.
We need a motion to remove to approve, sorry, that was autocorrect.
Autocorrect's gonna kill us here.
Approve planning commission order 26-0035 and approve the
Just reverse the planning commission order.
sorry. And approve, is it the application consistent with the planning director and the approval file? With 2 conditions, 1.
2 additional conditions.
Maximum traffic count to be within the 2x sensitivity analysis from the traffic impact study. And to limit the ingress egress routes to those in the traffic study regarding local deliveries. You said better.
To service local customers, I think was that.
Yeah.
What did I say?
To service local. Or service local delivery.
And Commissioner Babbitts, could we just add like on the grounds that the applicant provided adequate information to meet the burden of proof concerning section 31.60.a of the Hood River County zoning ordinance, that site access will not cause dangerous intersection or traffic congestion?
So yeah, you're describing the findings that would come along with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm trusting that staff.
Yeah, to the motion.
For us.
Okay.
And I guess the only thing I left out was whether this comes back to us for final approval, or whether we authorize the chair to sign it. This seems complex enough that we probably should have it come back so that we can make sure that staff got the words saying exactly what we meant. So I guess
yes.
leave the motion to bring back, direct staff to bring back an order to that effect for final consideration at a future. Do we have a date certain for that meeting?
We do not, but I think you could say as available by. I'm assuming it's going to be prior to the next or at the next meeting.
At the next regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners?
I'm asking what's possible. This is sort of thing that could be quickly. Are
there any time constraints with this?
We have a clock, right? So they're consulting, letting.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, time constraints with this.
There's the whole writ of mandamus thing because we're past the 100 and how many days?
150, I think.
Okay. They're talking.
But we could probably have it come back. So it's via email and vote.
Yeah, we could have a Zoom meeting. I just want to see what they want to do. I'm presuming that this would be a relatively straightforward discussion at that point, but I could be wrong.
When the discussion was, is the September regular meeting of the Board of the Commissioners that outside of the 120-day window? So do we need to set another date?
Yeah, so the question, yes, we are already outside the 150-day window,
150.
and so, that's, it's not a relevant factor at this point.
So are you saying that it's fine to wait till the next meeting, or are you saying we should have a special meeting?
No, I think it's fine to wait till the next regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
So I guess add my
Okay.
motion to bring it back to us at our next scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting.
Okay. So there's been a motion made by Commissioner Babbitts,
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Munzer. Any further discussion?
I guess the only comment I would make is that I sure understand why people would rather not have additional traffic, would rather not have additional things happening in their area. I get that. I think if we were to go with the decision that the Planning Commission made, Luba would bounce it back quicker than we could snap our fingers, because I don't see the justification in the code for it.
Yes, I agree. No, we have to stick to the information that we have. And just follow, I mean, we're here to enforce the rules and the laws. Okay, we'll call for a vote. Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries.
And so when this comes back, we don't take any testimony. There's no discussion other than us acknowledging that what we have in front of us is what we intended to do. Is that correct?
And then you make a decision to sign or not.
Okay, so people should not be preparing for any testimony. at that point. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, everyone, and thank you, staff, for preparing us and all of the work that went into this.
So Chair, we're ready. People are sort of trying to clear out the room, so certainly everyone's welcome to stay, but some people are leaving.
Yes.
We could wait
Okay.
and things calm down.
Sounds good. 'Cause next on the agenda, we have public comment. And we'll wait a little bit. Sounds like still some action in the room.
Commissioner Weathers is taking a recess.
Okay. Does anybody else need one?
Apparently, Commissioner Munson.
Okay. Sounds good.
Some guys have trouble.
3-minute bio break.
I'm gonna sign off now unless you need me for anything else.
No, thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate you.
welcome. It was a pleasure
Take
meeting
care.
everyone. Have a good rest of your meeting.
Take care. Bye.
Commissioner Monetti, I think a 5-minute recess.
Sounds great. We'll be back at 8:16.
Okay.
Okay, we are resuming our business meeting at 8:17. We're moving on to agenda item number 5, public comment. There's a limit of 3 minutes per person for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Not online, and I don't see any in the room.
Were you able to hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Sophie. All right, then we'll move on to administrator's report.
Thank you. So quickly this evening, first thing on my administrator's report is I just want to acknowledge the significant impact of the Grasshopper Fire and acknowledge the work of Sheriff's Office, our Emergency Management Division, and all of the teams that have worked together well. And this one has invoked all parts of the county, including the health department with the smoke oversight, and our new public information officer who has made quite a great impact. And I just want to acknowledge Commissioner Munther with a phone call saying, hey, can our fairgrounds host the animal sale? I just think that was a huge win-win for our counties. And
what did you buy?
I did not go buy a llama as suggested. Sheriff English, is there anything you want to add in regards to the grasshopper fire or anything? Okay. And we kept close tabs on its proximity to our county forest. So, okay. Commissioner Ewer is meeting with the mayor this Wednesday to talk about a time and an agenda for the joint meeting. So if there is input, let us know. I will attend that also. I just want to note that our very patient Waste Connections Director, Jim, is in the audience. On your consent agenda is the amendment to the renewal of our contract with Hood River Garbage, and it includes an increase in the franchise fee to 7% from 5%. And also there is the animal control contract in the consent agenda that was approved by the Hood River City Council. That also has a small increase in regards to that contract. I just want to acknowledge our federal delegation and the great results that we're having with grant writing and bringing resources. In the packet, acknowledge that we are listed in the Water Resources Development Act for the application that we put in for the Transportation Resiliency Project. So great work on the part of our delegation. And I want to acknowledge Commissioner Moretti, who stood in for Commissioner Ewer for the R1 Act. We had several projects that were of importance to Hood River County, and one advanced several spaces. So thank you for your work. And I think that was a great advocacy effort, and acknowledge Corey Wiesner in assisting on that effort and understanding the importance of the networking that had to occur there. So I think that is it for my administrator's report.
Great, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Babbitts with Commissioner's reports.
Okay, I'll limit my report to the bridge. There was actually news on the bridge in the past week or two. We received notification from the Federal Highways, I believe it would be, or the Department of Transportation, that our application for the bridge investment program received a recommended rating, which means that we proceed to the next step. So two things happen. Number one is we made a cut. Number two is they made a cut, that there actually is some forward progress on this. And they specifically asked us to submit any additional information that may have changed since the initial application, which was like 9 months ago now, by September 25th. So they've set a deadline for that. And, since we applied to this, we've reached 60% design documents. We'll probably be at 100% by the time they proceed. We got our record of decision. Some other big thing that happened, Coast Guard approval. So we have some pretty significant things to add to the whole package. We previously, the last round, we were rated strongly recommend or highly recommend, that we didn't get it, but the interstate crossing in Portland was rated recommended and did get it. So apparently that is not by itself determinative. It's simply you either got to move forward or you didn't. So we got to move forward, which I think is good news. We don't know, it's different people making different appraisals on different rules and different measurements. So we don't know what will happen. But our expectation now is that we will have a decision on that by the end of the calendar year. possibly by, possibly or even maybe likely before the election, before the November election. It seems like a reasonable guess. And we will, we're evaluating the effect that the decision delay from, we're hoping end of fiscal year, September 30th. And now if it's December 31st, we have to look at the impact that that has on our ability to get into the water in the first in-water period, which starts in, I believe, October of 27. And so we have to see if there's any effect on the project, presuming that we actually get the grant, but it doesn't come until the end of this calendar year. So that's complicated. Staff is working on that now, and we should know pretty quickly whether we can do that. So that's it for the bridge. Meaningful news. No answer, but meaningful progress.
And a tight timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, and a tight
Thank
timeline.
you.
We don't know the
Thank
full
you.
impact. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Weathers, we missed you.
Thank you for noticing I was gone.
That's right.
Yeah, I was gone. Not too much, nothing with Mountwood Economic, lines, no business, no loans to discuss. Did have a Norcor meeting, and Commissioner Heggie has stepped down as his term is expiring, and Commissioner Justison is taking a seat on Norcor, and I was outvoted and appointed to the new Norcor chair. So
Congrats.
have that on my list, I guess, and looking forward to working even more closely with sheriff and the juvenile directors and staff there. So more to come.
Thanks for doing that.
I don't know that I had a choice.
Thanks for accepting your fate.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, look forward to that. Well, shouldn't sound like we'll have financials closed this month, but I'm, really wanting to see what our beginning fund balance looks like as the end of the fiscal year is behind us. So I'll report on that next month. Hopefully we'll have that, and fingers crossed, good news.
But we've clearly communicated that there's not more money coming out of any of the counties, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you and congratulations.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Munzer.
Well, first of all, I don't want to take full credit for the whole Wasco County Fair coming over. The Fair Board basically had that put together when I made that phone call.
Okay.
So that is 100% their accomplishment, which they did a great job. And they had the pen set up the next morning and people moved in, and I'm assuming that the kids did very well because they probably got more advertisement than they may have if they would have done it at their own fair. I was unable to actually go to their auction, but I heard it was very successful.
Yes, and their fairgrounds being down in Tide Valley, it's not exactly accessible to people from the Dallas area, so.
I would guess that
it's just accessible there.
The drive probably was very similar, but
and a lot less smoking.
Yeah, they did a real good job of getting that all put together. But our fair went really well. I mean, I don't know how many people got to go out there, but we have a lot of great volunteers that put that together and keep at it for that. It's quite an accomplishment every year to keep that going. Mount Hood Town Hall got started on their solar project. They did find some things that they couldn't use the grant money for, so they're trying to come up with another $50,000 to do some additional work that the grant did not cover. Sounds like they'll be having some outreach in October for that. So as far as loans go, I think kind of in the same boat as not a lot of loans being asked for.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, for me, again, also another shout out to Corey Wiesner for her support and Kathy Fitzpatrick preparing us to give testimony at the R1 ACT meeting in support of some projects in Hood River County, the port and the airport, and CAT, public transportation. They had 5 projects and Mid-Columbia Center for Living with the Pacific Source reduction of 19%. They we're going to see a reduction in services to our counties. The services that will not be impacted are the safety net services, which is crisis response and serious mental illness. But outpatient therapy and substance abuse services will be impacted. More details to come on that. And Columbia Gorge Health Council meeting was postponed for later this month. And at the Mid-Columbia Housing Authority annual meeting, we had it at the Fish Food Bank, and I was voted in as chair. So that's.
Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Or as I said, Commissioner Weathers, for yielding to your fate.
Yes, yeah. Channel my inner Phil Brady there. And that's it. So going back to our agenda.
While you're doing that, could I just remind everybody, it's my understanding that we still haven't finished this land use proceeding, so we still have the same ex parte rules. Is that correct? Correct. So we shouldn't talk to anybody. Still, I'm sure people will want to talk to us.
Oh, yes.
Let's decide it, but we haven't finished. So
for clarifying that.
Yeah.
That works. Yes. Thank you for reminding us.
You're supposed
okay,
to
and then yes, that. Onto the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would make the motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Weathers, second by Commissioner Babbitts. Commissioner Munzer.
Wait, I have brief discussion.
Oh, yes. Any discussion?
Matter of discussion. So we're confirming the supplemental agenda item concerning allowing me access to the Baker Tilly financial analysis tool. I just want to get on the record. When I offered to do that, I had a good block of time available. By the time a week later I received the information, I know I was deep into this 1,000 pages of analysis here. So I have not yet had a time to go into that tool. So I have not made any progress on that. And I am frankly a little annoyed at the entire process. It escapes my understanding in what way a tool which we sat here and used in a public meeting is not available to me to analyze to see what we were actually doing in that public meeting. So I just wanted to state that for the record, and I'll keep the rest to myself.
Noted. Any other discussion? And thank you for offering to look at that tool, Commissioner Babbitts. I know that's not expected, but thank you for offering. Okay, moving on to a vote. Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Now we're moving on to work session items, committee interviews and appointments. Starting off with the Fair Board applicants.
I move to appoint Linda Massengill to the Fair Board.
Second.
Hey, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hey, Commissioner Munzer.
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers.
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Linda Massengill, for joining the Fair Board. I know we didn't have Enrique Esquivias present, so should we just move on to the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee?
I think so.
Okay. For civilian position, we had Matthew Hilla.
I move that we approve Matthew Hill to the civilian position of the ambulance service.
I will second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I didn't finish the name of the position. That's okay. No.
Okay. Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers,
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer.
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Congratulations, Matthew Hilla. Okay, now moving on to old business. Item A, resolution carbon revenue fund. Commissioner Babbitts, you wanted a little bit more time to take a look at this, right? Or no, was that
The carbon revenue
Yes.
fund, I made some suggestions and staff has gone and made the changes based on those, correct? Thought that the changes, I think that this is something which probably is going to want to be tuned at some point in the future, but I think it's a good starting point. So I'm personally satisfied with that one.
Is that a motion?
Okay, let me, sorry. My network, I'm having a bit of slow network here. So this is a resolution, this is not an ordinance, so I move that we accept the carbon revenue fund resolution as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers,
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
chair votes aye. Okay, motion passes. Old business, item B, resolution timber deposit interest fund.
And on this one, if staff could just offer a clarification, under section 2.1 revenue source. If we could clarify, we have separate funds for the timber deposit fund and then the timber salvage sales. So this would read that all sales would be deposited into the timber deposit fund, which they aren't. So we just wanted to clarify that it was revenue generated from county timber sales except salvage sales. Correct, Doug?
Correct.
So, yeah.
Can you explain that distinction? I'm not sure. So we've never been segregating the interest from the salvage sales, and you're suggesting we continue that practice of not segregating it as we do, but not segregating it from the basic timber sales.
I think what you're saying is correct. When we get the receipts from timber sales and receipts from salvage sales, they go into two separate funds.
And they have always.
Yes.
And so that doesn't appear to be what this says, and you're saying you're asking us to change this to say that.
Correct. Because it is the interest off the timber deposit fund where the timber sales, not salvage sales, goes, that creates the revenue for the timber deposit interest fund.
Just remind me the difference in scale. I mean, obviously it's significant difference in scale between the timber sales and the salvage sales.
Yeah, it's usually
You got to get on the mic. Letty can't hear you.
Can kind of hear.
Right, Doug, I absolutely pay attention to you. I just can't remember.
That's okay. Yeah, the salvage timber sale revenue is usually, closer to 5% or less. Sometimes it's 0 some years. There's very little. So it's usually a much smaller number. Even in a really big year, you might see a year of 10 or 20% of what our regular greenwood timber sales are. But yeah, so timber salvage has always been tracked separate, and the revenue from timber salvage always goes into a different fund. Part of the reason for that is the salvage revenue is not part of our allowable cut, and so it's tracked separately. It's also going to be very useful that we do it that way for the carbon project, because they like to keep track of it separate as well. So I recommend we keep doing it the same way. And just wanted to clarify in section 2.1 that that statement relative to revenue generated from county timber sales, excluding salvage, shall be deposited into the timber deposit fund.
Okay.
It's also repeated on the next slide under definitions. So we would add it in the same place under definitions.
So I do have a question. In the whereases, I think it states what my intent was which is whereas the Board of Commissioners has identified the county needs a fund reserved for one-time capital expenditures in order to strengthen the county's long-term financial sustainability. I think that's a good, clean statement. But then the whereases are just whereases. When we get down into the sections, I see for section 4, it says purpose 4.4, transfer shall be used only for one-time capital expenditures and shall not be relied upon to support ongoing operating expenditures or recurring programs. I'm wondering if we can add a clause to the effect of that those one-time capital expenditures are ones expected to strengthen the county's long-term financial sustainability. In other words, and just because we did it today, I would say that the purchase of new body cameras would not fit in that category, but purchasing of new software, which would create some efficiency in staff operations or whatever might easily qualify for that. So I'm just trying to get the text to match the whereas. Does somebody agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, my question too was why the one-time capital expenditures?
Because
does that imply a similar capital expenditure in the future would not be considered?
No, I think it's something that occurs on a recurring basis. Like every year we have to buy cartridge toners, ink toners, ink toner cartridges. Boy,
I see what
ink toner cartridges, and I don't want.
That's not really a capital expenditure.
Yeah, but it could be if they were really big.
Well, you're gonna get them. Yeah.
No, so yeah, you may be right that I guess unfortunately Jerry had to leave, but I'm a little confused on exactly what the borderline is on this, and I am worried that we may either over or under specifying this, and both are problematic. And I'm wondering if maybe, I hate to say this, but we should wait one more time.
I was just gonna say this doesn't seem like an issue with timeliness, considering we're nowhere near budget, just finished. So I have the same. I at least needed some specificity there, so I would
move that we table consideration of this until the next available meeting.
Okay, that's a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Munzer?
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers?
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Okay. And staff, do you all have what you need for timber deposit? Okay, great. Moving on to new business. We've got reviewing the work plan action items from the August 3rd, 2026 meeting outcomes and next steps.
I have to get to the right paper. Okay. So in your packet, to recap the August 3rd session that we had, your packet includes the prioritized items that were from both the organizational assessment. So those items that our department heads had prioritized to work on. And then those items that were prioritized at our August 3rd meeting. And so the organizational assessment action items were to implement the centralized public information and communication, which I was able to put a complete on because we're headed that direction. To evaluate patrol staffing model and optimize law enforcement service delivery, which staff at that meeting had was going to bring that to the LIPSIC committee to implement an integrated asset and infrastructure management framework. So that work is underway. To centralize and strengthen our financial management processes. That work is also underway in terms of looking at our centralized financial systems. To conduct a user fee and cost of service study. So a portion of that work was already started with our budget process. This would be an in-depth look at our user fees that will happen over this winter. And then we get down to the fiscal options action plan. So the items that were prioritized were to implement 6% prepared food and beverage tax, to increase the public safety. These were items for consideration for the board. To increase the public safety levy to intentionally cover the cost of the sheriff's office or explore a public service district. That one, that end was added during the August 3rd meeting.
The Public Safety Service District.
Yes. To look at the increase in transient lodging taxes in the county and the overlay on the city. And then there were the two cost shift options, which were looking at PERS cost sharing and restricting wage growth. Those both would be considered during our comp and class analysis that is getting underway. So for this evening's discussion, I just wanted to confirm that is where the board landed. And then I gave an example of a work plan for this fall that would get us to an ordinance over the winter for a referral to the May ballot.
Or specifically just for the food and beverage.
Well, I
Or is that
did
the same for all?
I did it for the food and beverage tax, but frankly, the steps in order to consider our options are the same in terms of hiring a polling firm. Actually, the update of the numbers with Eco Northwest, that one is specifically for the prepared food and beverage tax because they have done the numbers for all of the other entities that have implemented it. And I checked in with them and it's a quick and easy update for them that would take about 4 weeks. And then we then have the whole process to go through with you in terms of, if we are to implement these measures, what things would you be looking at? And then we would go out and test those this fall with the polling company, hold stakeholder meetings, and then come back with the potential review of ordinances this winter, November, December timeframe. And I'm stressing out Lisa because it's all okay.
She hasn't left. She's in Lisa's over stressed.
Yes. So if we were to do the prepared food and beverage tax, the transient lodging taxes, those are both public votes. The public safety levy, also public votes. So you would need that public information that we would do with polling firm this fall. So my ask for this evening is to get quotes and get the polling work, a contract underway. And that is within my authority to do, but I want the board to be comfortable with that direction. And then would you want to test the numbers with Eco Northwest for the prepared food and beverage tank?
Any update? Yes.
Okay.
I think that's something we need. We gotta get started.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right.
I think yes, I saw her mouth move.
Okay. Thumbs up.
And a thumb up.
Yes, yes.
Staff has direction. Okay, perfect. That is a quick covering of that item, which is so major for our county. So thank you. I think we've got big work ahead of us.
Yes. Yes, thank you for.
Free of 1,065.
Yeah. Okay, and now we're moving on to executive session.
We have the two
Supplemental.
Oh, that's right.
items. And
Yes.
so do we have
Thank you.
Katie on for the, okay.
Yes, he's on, voting for, and.
Yeah. Resolution declaring drought in Hood River County.
Yes.
So the additional.
Yeah.
Already including, so just the new business. All right.
So I think Katie is coming on to describe this request. And in your packet, in the supplemental agenda, there is a request from Warm Springs and from our the emergency declaration. Is Katie there?
Katie's there, the Warm Springs letter is not in there.
Okay, so we can circulate the Warm Springs letter, but it is a request from our irrigation districts. And so Katie, you can take it from there.
It's a request from our irrigation districts, soil and water conservation, to put in a drought request, which is specific for water resources. Because we are adjacent to Wasco County, we automatically fall in a drought. So we have that type of drought already. However, in order for the irrigation districts to affect CFS and stream and to manage water rights, this is a water resource specific drought request. It needs to come from the local level to the state level, and this is the start of this process.
And we would say that legal just got this in her hands. There were a couple of, so that if you were to act on this tonight, it would be contingent on her final review.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks, Allison. So we're looking for an approval of the resolution.
Yes.
Correct.
Pending approval by legal counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, so the irrigation districts, presumably this affects them and presumably they're on board with this? Is that?
Yes, the executive director of Farmers Irrigation was in the room, might be online now, I don't know, Alexis Vivota. They contacted all of the other irrigation districts and special districts and came up with this list of districts that would request this drought.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Oh, she's back.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Moritz,
Okay.
Alexis did return. If you
Oh,
would.
okay. Sure, Alexis.
Hello.
I just had a
Hi.
question
Yeah, absolutely.
of whether this affects, you have to sit up there.
Yeah.
All right.
There now. Hi.
The question is whether presumably this affects the irrigation districts and presumably they're in favor of this. And we're speaking for you, but if you could speak for yourself on that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have been in discussion with East Fork Irrigation District, Middle Fork Irrigation District, Hood River Watershed Group, and the Soil and Water Conservation District, several other stakeholders. And Megan Saunders has definitely been keeping close track since March, really, and tracking where our reservoir levels are, where the river flows are. And as things have progressed, I think we're doing all right. However, there is interest in making sure that we are protected under the drought declaration. So
got it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sticking around.
Not so hungry.
I bet. All right, we'll call for a vote. Commissioner Weathers,
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, letter to Parks and Recreation District for Golden Eagle Park.
Yes, and so this item came forward as a result of the Hood River Parks and Recreation District seeking to work with their stakeholders to purchase a piece of property that is adjacent to Golden Eagle Park. Golden Eagle Park is a county-owned piece of land. However, it's subject to a 99-year lease with a 1-year renewal for an additional 99 years to the school district. And then the school district has an agreement with the Parks and Recreation District to operate and make improvements. And
it has a 6F encumbrance over it.
And I would assume that some of the grants that they have received have created that 6F encumbrance.
It appears on the national map of 6F encumbrances.
Okay. And so staff came forward and recommended that the county not be in the middle of this and that we work on a process to transfer the land to the school district or to the Parks District. This was after conversations with the school district and Parks District. And the school district would have to consent to end their lease. There is a caveat to, and so the Parks District is looking for a letter that they can take to the help with the potential purchase. From county staff, we have other parks that we need to improve, tennis courts. And so we would have loved some consideration in this, but they're all public entities. And so working together on fundraising, if it can improve Oak Grove Park, or if eventually we can get to some relationship where those are operated together, Oak Grove Park and the tennis courts. So we're asking for your approval of the letter.
I would move that we accept the letter.
Okay.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Munzer,
Yes.
Commissioner Weathers,
Yes.
Commissioner Babbitts,
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Okay, and now we will move to executive session. Okay, so the Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.20, consider the security of, yes? Oh, I thought I heard something. To consider the security of county facilities, operations, and personnel, and ORS 192.662P to consider matters relating to cybersecurity infrastructure and responses to cybersecurity threats. This executive session is closed to the public. However, representatives of the news media and designated staff may attend. No final decisions will be made in executive session. At the conclusion of the executive session, the meeting will be adjourned. It is now 8:56 p.m.
Do I just get to gloat for the fact that we have that ORS because I asked for it? That's my ORS.
Got it. Yep.